Tonight, a poor girl will step into the world of Manhattan's most dangerous men and never escape. As Alara Quinn stands in the middle of a multi-million-dollar penthouse, she doesn't know that the man watching her from across the room is the city's most powerful underworld boss. And he wants her. Not for her beauty, not for her money, but for a reason she can't remember. One night 3 months ago, when she saved his mother's life. Now that debt will change everything. Follow this story to the end. Like and comment with the city you're starting from, so I know how far my story has come. Now, let's begin. The champagne smelled wrong. Too sweet, too expensive, like someone had melted down jewelry and poured it into crystal flutes. Alara Quinn stood near the marble kitchen island of the penthouse, gripping her bargain bin clutch so hard the plastic dug into her palm, and wondered what the hell she was doing here. The apartment stretched out before her like a museum exhibit on obscene wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, the city lights glittering below like fallen stars. Everything was white and gold and untouchable. The furniture looked like it would shatter if you breathed on it wrong. Women in designer dresses that cost more than Alara's annual tuition drifted past, laughing at jokes she couldn't hear, their perfume a cloud of florals and condescension. She didn't belong here. The invitation had arrived 4 days ago, slipped under her apartment door and in cream envelopes so thick it felt like fabric. No return address. Just her name in elegant calligraphy and an address in Tribeca. You are cordially invited. The whole thing screamed mistake or prank, but Jenna, her roommate, and the only reason she'd even considered coming, had insisted it was fate. Maybe it's a rich patient's family, Jenna had said, practically bouncing. You save lives every day at that hospital. Someone probably wants to thank you properly. Alara had laughed it off. She was a nursing student doing clinical rotations, not some miracle worker. Most days she emptied bedpans and tried not to fall asleep during 12-hour shifts. The idea that someone from this world would even notice her was absurd. But here she was, wearing a black dress she'd found at a thrift store for $18, the hem slightly uneven where the previous owner had tried to shorten it. Her shoes pinched, her hair, dark and stubbornly wavy, had already started escaping the bun she'd wrestled it into. She felt like a smudge on expensive paper. A waiter glided past with a tray of hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny sculptures. Alara grabbed one without thinking, then immediately regretted it when she bit down and tasted something she couldn't identify. Fish? Flour? She chewed grimly and swallowed, chasing it with champagne she hadn't meant to drink. First time? A voice asked beside her. Alara turned. A woman in her 50s, hair swept into a silver chignon, smiled at her with the kind of warmth that felt calculated. She wore emeralds that probably cost more than Alara's student loans. Is it that obvious? Alara asked. Only to people who've been coming to these things for 20 years. The woman's smile didn't waver, but her eyes traveled over Alara's dress with the precision of an X-ray machine. Are you a friend of Lucien's? Alara blinked. Who? The woman's perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted a fraction. Lucien Varelli, the host. Oh. Heat crept up Alara's neck. No, I don't know him. I got an invitation, but I think there might have been a mistake. Lucien doesn't make mistakes. The woman's tone shifted, cooling by several degrees. She sipped her champagne, studying Alara over the rim. Well, enjoy the party, dear. She drifted away, leaving Alara alone again with the creeping certainty that she'd been right all along. This was a mistake. She didn't belong, and she needed to leave before someone called security. She set her champagne glass down on the nearest surface, a side table that was probably worth more than her car, and turned toward the exit. The crowd had thickened, bodies pressed together in clusters of conversation and laughter. She wove through them, mumbling apologies, keeping her eyes down. Almost there. The elevator bank was just ahead, chrome doors gleaming. Leaving so soon? The voice cut through the noise like a blade, low, smooth, with an edge that made her stop mid-step. She turned. He stood 10 feet away, hands in the pockets of a suit so perfectly tailored it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. Dark hair, dark eyes, a face that could have been carved from stone except for the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He wasn't the tallest man in the room, but somehow he took up the most space, like gravity bent around him. Lucien Varelli. It had to be. Alara's voice caught. She cleared her throat. I was just, You haven't touched the food, he said, moving closer. Not fast, but deliberate, each step measured. And you've been standing by the kitchen for the past 20 minutes looking like you're about to bolt. I think there was a mistake with the invitation. No mistake. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. They were the color of a storm rolling in, gray-blue and unreadable. I invited you personally. Alara's heart kicked against her ribs. Why? Because 3 months ago, you saved my mother's life. The floor seemed to tilt. Alara gripped the edge of the side table behind her, her mind racing. 3 months ago, the hospital. There had been so many patients, so many shifts blurring together in a haze of exhaustion and adrenaline. But then, the woman in the cardiac unit, late 50s, elegant even in a hospital gown, with kind eyes and a terrified son who'd paced the hallway for hours. She'd gone into V-fib during Alara's shift, and Alara had been the one to notice first, to call the code, to start compressions while the attending rushed in. They'd gotten her back. Stable. Transferred to ICU. Alara had never learned her name. The woman with the arrhythmia, she said slowly. That was your mother? Isabella Varelli. Lucian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, brief, almost human. You kept her alive long enough for the doctors to stabilize her. They told me if you'd been even 30 seconds slower. He trailed off, jaw tightening. You didn't leave your name. You didn't ask for anything. You just did your job and moved on. That's what nurses do, Alara said, still reeling. Not in my experience. He tilted his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Most people want something in return, recognition, money, a favor they can cash in later. I was doing my job, Alara repeated, firmer this time. Your mother needed help. I helped her. That's it. A smile ghosted across his mouth, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. That's why I wanted to meet you. To say thank you? The words came out sharper than she'd intended, defensive. You could have sent a card. I could have. He shifted his weight, and suddenly the space between them felt charged, electric. But I wanted to see for myself, the woman who saved my mother's life and didn't think twice about it. I wanted to know if you were real. Real, Alara echoed. The word felt strange in her mouth, surrounded by all this glass and gold and artifice. Everyone in this room wants something from me, Lucian said quietly. Power, money, access. They smile and shake my hand and lie through their teeth because that's the game we play. But you, he paused, his gaze locked on hers. You didn't even know who I was. You just saw someone who needed help. Alara's pulse thrummed in her ears. She should leave. Every instinct screamed at her to thank him politely and get the hell out of this penthouse, away from this man whose presence felt like standing too close to a fire. But her feet stayed rooted to the floor. I should go, she managed. Stay. The word was soft, almost a question. 1 hour. Let me properly thank you for what you did. You don't owe me anything. I know. His eyes held hers, unflinching. But I'd like you to stay anyway. There was something in his voice, not a command, not quite a plea. Something raw and unguarded that didn't match the expensive suit or the penthouse or the way everyone in the room kept glancing at him like he was a live grenade. Alara looked toward the elevator, then back at him. This was insane. She didn't know this man. She didn't know anything about his world, and every rational part of her brain was screaming that she should walk away. But she thought of his mother, Isabella Varelli, with her kind eyes and her terror, and how it had felt to feel a pulse return under her hands. How the son had looked at her afterward, raw with relief and gratitude, and she'd just nodded and moved on because that was the job. 1 hour, she heard herself say. Lucian's shoulders loosened slightly, a tension she hadn't noticed melting away. Thank you. He gestured toward the far side of the room, away from the crush of guests. Alara followed, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking their movement. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through grass. She caught fragments. Who is she? Never seen her before. Did you see the dress? And felt her face burn. Lucian led her to a quieter corner where the windows looked out over the city, the lights stretching to the horizon. He picked up 2 fresh champagne glasses from a passing waiter and handed her one. I don't usually drink, Alara said. Neither do I. He set his glass down on the windowsill untouched. It's just something to hold. A surprised laugh escaped her. That's the saddest thing I've heard all night. Welcome to high society. His mouth quirked. It's all performance. The drinking, the laughing, the small talk about nothing. Everyone's playing a role. What role are you playing? The question hung between them. Lucien's expression shifted, became unreadable again. The gracious host, the successful businessman, the man who has everything under control. And is any of it true? Parts of it. He turned to look out the window, his profile sharp against the city lights. The rest is complicated. Alara sipped her champagne, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. She shouldn't push, she should make polite conversation for 58 more minutes and then leave and never think about this night again. But something about his honesty, the way he dropped his guard just slightly, made her want to prod at the edges. How's your mother? She asked instead. Good. Better than good, actually. She's been volunteering at a community center in Queens, driving my sister-in-law crazy with her energy. His expression softened. She talks about you sometimes, the nurse who saved her. She wanted to find you to thank you properly, but the hospital wouldn't give out your information. Privacy laws, Alara said. I know, but I have other resources. He glanced at her, and there was something almost apologetic in his eyes. I hope you don't mind that I tracked you down. Should I be worried that you can do that? Probably. The honesty caught her off guard. But I'm not going to hurt you, Alara. I just wanted to meet you, to thank you, to understand why you did what you did. I told you, it's my job, and I'm telling you that most people don't approach their jobs the way you do. He shifted, turning to face her fully. I've built my career on reading people, understanding what drives them, what they want, what they're afraid of. It's how I've survived in my industry. But you? He shook his head slightly. I can't read you. Maybe there's nothing to read, Alara said. Maybe I'm exactly what I look like. A broke nursing student trying to get through clinical rotations without falling asleep in a patient's room. You're more than that. The certainty in his voice made her chest tighten. She looked away, out at the city, at the thousands of lit windows hiding thousands of lives she'd never know. You don't know me. No, he agreed. But I'd like to. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Alara's grip tightened on her champagne glass. This was dangerous territory. She could feel it in her bones, in the way her heart was beating too fast, in the way the air seemed thinner when he looked at her like that. She started, but a commotion near the entrance cut her off. A man had entered the penthouse, flanked by 2 others who looked like they'd stepped out of a mafia movie. The newcomer was tall, blonde, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He scanned the room with the casual arrogance of someone who knew he was the most dangerous person present. Alara felt Lucien go still beside her. Not tense exactly, but coiled, like a spring pulled tight. Friend of yours? She asked quietly. No. The single word was edged with something cold and sharp. Stay here. He moved away before she could respond, cutting through the crowd with the same measured precision as before. The room seemed apart for him, guests stepping aside without being asked. Alara watched as he approached the blonde man, saw the way they greeted each other with handshakes that looked like threats. The woman with the emeralds appeared beside Alara, her earlier warmth completely gone. You should leave, she said quietly. What? Adrian Volkov doesn't come to parties to socialize. If he's here, it means trouble. The woman's eyes were fixed on the 2 men, her face pale beneath her makeup. And you don't want to be anywhere near Lucien Varelli when there's trouble. Ice slid down Alara's spine. What are you talking about? Who is he? The woman finally looked at her, and there was pity in her eyes. You really don't know, do you? She took a breath. Lucien Varelli isn't just a businessman, sweetheart. He's the head of one of the most powerful crime families in New York. And if Adrian Volkov is here, it means someone's about to die. The room tilted. Alara's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Heads turned. Lucien looked up, his eyes finding hers across the distance, and she saw it then. The hardness beneath the surface, the violence coiled beneath the expensive suit. Crime family. The words echoed in her skull. She'd saved the mother of a mobster. She'd been invited to a mobster's penthouse. She'd stood here talking to him like he was just some grateful son instead of she needed to leave. Now. Alara turned toward the elevator, her heels crunching on broken glass. The crowd had gone quiet, watching. She could feel their eyes on her back, could feel Lucien's gaze burning into her, but she kept walking. Almost there. Just a few more steps. A hand closed around her wrist. She spun, and Lucien was there, his expression unreadable. Alara, let go of me. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I need you to listen. You lied to me. The words burst out, sharp with betrayal. You made it sound like you were just some businessman, like this was just a thank you party, but you're... I didn't lie. His grip on her wrist was gentle but firm. I never said I was just a businessman. You assumed. Because normal people don't send cryptic invitations to strangers. She yanked her arm, but he didn't let go. Normal people don't track people down using resources. What the hell was I thinking coming here? You came here because you have a good heart, Lucien said quietly. Because even though you didn't know me, you trusted that someone whose mother you saved wouldn't hurt you. And I won't. I promise you that. Your promises don't mean anything to me. But even as she said it, she could feel her conviction wavering. Because he wasn't wrong, she had trusted him, instinctively, against all logic. And some part of her still did, even now. Lucien, the blond man, Volkov, had approached, his smile sharp as broken glass. Aren't you going to introduce me to your guest? Lucien's jaw clenched. He released Alara's wrist but positioned himself slightly between her and Volkov. She's leaving. Is she? Volkov's eyes traveled over Alara with slow, deliberate interest. Pity. I was hoping to get acquainted. It's so rare to see fresh blood at these gatherings. Fresh blood. The phrase made Alara's skin crawl. Adrian, Lucien said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Walk away. Or what? Volkov's smile widened. You'll make a scene in front of all these lovely people, in front of her? He nodded toward Alara. I don't think you want her to see what you're really capable of, Lucien. Not when you've been working so hard to seem civilized. The tension crackled between them like lightning about to strike. Alara could feel it in the air, in the way everyone had gone still, in the way Lucien's hands had curled into fists at his sides. She should run. She should push past them both and get into the elevator and never look back. But she thought of Isabella Virelli, kind and terrified, and she thought of Lucien's face when he'd talked about his mother, and she thought about how he'd asked her to stay, not demanded, asked. I'm not leaving, she heard herself say. Both men turned to look at her. Lucien's expression flickered with surprise. Volkov's smile sharpened. Interesting, Volkov murmured. She has fire. I like that. Alara? Lucien started, but she cut him off. You asked me to stay for an hour, she said, meeting his eyes. I said yes. So unless you're kicking me out, I'm staying. Something shifted in Lucien's face, relief and warning, and something else she couldn't name. This isn't a game. I know. And God help her, she did. She could feel it in her bones, in the electric charge of danger, in the way Volkov was watching them both like a predator deciding which prey to take down first. But I made a promise. I keep my promises. Lucien held her gaze for a long moment, and she saw the calculation behind his eyes. Then he turned to Volkov. You have 5 minutes to state your business. Then you leave. 5 minutes? Volkov laughed, but there was no humor in it. I came all this way for 5 minutes? 4.5 now. The room had gone silent. Every guest was watching, some with fear, some with barely concealed excitement. This was the moment, Alara realized. This was where the polite facade dropped completely, and whatever lurked beneath came into the light. Volkov's smile faded. You've been making moves in territory that doesn't belong to you, he said, his voice still casual but edged with steel. The docks, the shipments coming through Newark. Word is you're trying to push into distribution. I'm diversifying my interests, Lucien said evenly. That's not a crime. It is when you don't ask permission. Volkov stepped closer, deliberately invading Lucien's space. You think because you've got some politicians in your pocket and a few legitimate businesses that you can just expand without consequences? That's not how this works. You know that. What I know, Lucian said, his voice dropping lower, is that you came to my home, interrupted my party, and threatened me in front of my guests. That's a mistake, Adrian. Is it? Volkov's eyes flicked to Alara. Or maybe the mistake is bringing civilians into our world, makes you vulnerable, makes you weak. The threat was crystal clear. Alara felt it like a hand closing around her throat. She wanted to step back, to disappear, but her feet stayed planted. Lucian moved, fast, controlled, and suddenly he was close enough to Volkov that Alara could see the tendons standing out in his neck. If you ever look at her again, he said, each word precise and lethal, I will burn your organization to the ground and scatter the ashes in the Hudson. Do you understand me? The silence was absolute. Volkov stared at Lucian for a long moment, and Alara saw the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of options. Finally he smiled, slow, knowing, vicious. So that's how it is. Interesting. He stepped back, adjusted his cuffs. We're not done, Lucian, not by a long shot. But I'll give you tonight. Consider it a courtesy. He turned and walked toward the exit, his two shadows falling into step behind him. The room seemed to exhale as he disappeared into the elevator, the doors sliding shut with a quiet chime. Alara realized she was shaking. Lucian turned to her, his expression stark. Are you all right? No. The word came out rough. No, I'm not all right. What the hell was that? That was Adrian Volkov making a point. Lucian's jaw was tight. And me making one back. By threatening to kill him? By making it clear that you're off limits. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Alara's mind raced. I didn't ask for your protection. I know, but you have it anyway. He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of real tension she'd seen from him. I'm sorry. I didn't think he'd come here tonight. I didn't think... He broke off, shaking his head. This was a mistake. I should have left you alone. Yes, Alara agreed. You should have. But she didn't move. Neither did he. The guests had started to disperse, the party fracturing in the wake of Volkov's appearance. Women gathered their purses. Men made quiet phone calls. The elegant facade was crumbling, revealing something uglier beneath. I meant what I said, Lucian said quietly. I won't let anything happen to you. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes met hers, and there was something raw in them, something almost desperate. You saved my mother's life without thinking twice. You came here tonight even though everything about it felt wrong. And just now, when any sane person would have run, you stayed. I know enough. Alara's throat tightened. She should be angry. She should be terrified. She should be calling the police or running or doing literally anything except standing here looking at this man who just threatened murder over her and feeling something warm and dangerous unfurl in her chest. Your hour's up, she said instead. Lucian nodded slowly. It is. I should go. You should. Neither of them moved. The penthouse had emptied around them, guests fleeing like smoke. Only a few stragglers remained, and they were pointedly not looking in their direction. Somewhere in the distance, the city hummed and throbbed, 8 million people living their lives, unaware of what had just happened in this glass tower. Can I ask you something? Alara said. Anything. Did you really track me down just to say thank you, or was there something else? Lucian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with honesty. At first, yes. I wanted to meet the woman who saved my mother, to understand her, to thank her properly. He paused. But then I saw you standing by the kitchen, looking lost and out of place and completely real, and I realized I wanted more than that. I wanted to know you, all of you, and that... He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's probably the most honest thing I've said in years. Alara's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. I can't be part of your world. I know. I have a normal life, school, work, bills I can barely pay. I can't do whatever this is. I know, he said again, softer this time. But, the word caught in her throat. She swallowed hard. But I'd like to see you again. Not here. Somewhere. Normal. Somewhere that's not filled with people like Volkov and violence and threats. Something in Lucian's expression cracked open. Are you sure? No. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. But I'm saying it anyway. A real smile, small, genuine, devastating, curved his mouth. There's a diner in Hell's Kitchen. Opens at 6 a.m., serves coffee that tastes like battery acid and pancakes that'll change your life. Would you meet me there tomorrow morning? I have clinical rotation at 8. I'll have you there by 7:30. Alara knew this was insane, knew that every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to say no, to walk away, to forget this night ever happened. But she thought of his hands gentle on her wrist, his voice rough with honesty, the way he'd stepped between her and danger without hesitation. Okay, she said. Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Lucian's smile widened slightly. I'll be there. She turned toward the elevator before she could change her mind. This time, he didn't stop her. But as she stepped inside and the doors began to close, she looked back at him one last time. He stood alone in the empty penthouse, surrounded by champagne glasses and broken illusions, watching her with an expression that looked almost like hope. The doors closed. Alara leaned against the cool metal wall, her heart racing, her hands shaking, her mind spinning. What had she just done? What had she just agreed to? The elevator descended, carrying her back down to street level, back to reality, back to her real life. But even as Manhattan spread out below her through the glass walls, she knew something had changed. Something had shifted inside her. Some door had opened that she couldn't close again. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., a diner in Hell's Kitchen. She was either about to make the best decision of her life or the worst. And God help her, she had no idea which. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and grease, exactly the way Lucian had promised. Alara sat in a cracked vinyl booth by the window, watching the sun crawl up between buildings, painting Hell's Kitchen in shades of pink and gray. She'd been here since 5:40, too wired to be late, too anxious to sit still. Her second cup of terrible coffee sat cooling in front of her, untouched. He wasn't coming. Of course he wasn't coming. Last night had been some kind of fever dream, a momentary lapse in judgment on both their parts. By now he'd probably realized how insane the whole thing was. A crime boss having breakfast with a nursing student? It was laughable. The door chimed. Lucian stepped inside, and the diner seemed to shrink around him. He wore jeans and a dark sweater instead of the suit, but it didn't make him look any less dangerous. Just different, more real. His eyes found hers immediately, and something in her chest loosened. He slid into the booth across from her, moving with that same controlled precision. You're early. So are you, Alara said. I didn't sleep. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Alara wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, needing something to hold. Me neither. A waitress appeared, 60-something, bleached hair, the kind of woman who'd seen everything twice. She looked at Lucian with zero recognition, just the mild irritation of someone who'd worked the morning shift for too many years. Coffee? Please, Lucian said. And the pancakes. 2 orders, Alara added. The waitress nodded and disappeared. Silence settled over the booth. Not quite comfortable, but not entirely awkward either. Alara studied Lucian's face in the morning light. The scar through his eyebrow was more visible now, a thin white line cutting through dark hair. There were shadows under his eyes that makeup or good lighting must have hidden last night. How'd you get that? She asked, nodding at the scar. Lucian's hand went to it automatically, almost a reflex. Bar fight when I was 19. Guy came at me with a broken bottle. Did he live? Barely. No apology in his voice, no justification. Just fact. Alara should have felt something, fear, revulsion, the instinct to run. Instead, she just felt tired. You're not going to pretend to be something you're not, are you? Would you want me to? No? And she meant it. The honesty was terrifying, but also strangely comforting. At least she knew what she was dealing with. I looked you up last night, after I got home. Lucian's expression didn't change. And? There's not much. Some business articles about your legitimate companies, real estate holdings, a few charity events, but nothing about, she gestured vaguely, the other stuff. That's intentional. I've spent the last 5 years trying to move away from what my father built, to make everything clean, legitimate, legal. He paused as the waitress returned with his coffee. waited until she was gone again. It's not easy to wash blood off money, Alara, no matter how hard you scrub. But you're trying. I'm trying. He wrapped his hands around the mug, mirroring her pose. My father died 3 years ago. Heart attack. Quick, painless, better than he deserved. He left me an empire built on violence and fear and corruption. And I looked at it and I thought, this can't be all there is. This can't be my entire life. So you're going legitimate. Slowly, carefully. You don't just walk away from this world, Alara. You have to negotiate your exit. Pay off the right people. Make the right deals. Convince everyone that you're not a threat. His jaw tightened. Adrian Volkov doesn't want me to succeed. If I go legitimate, it sets a precedent. It suggests that there's another way. And that threatens the old guard. Alara absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. That's why he came to your apartment last night, to remind you that you're not out yet. Exactly. Lucian met her eyes. And to find my weak spots. The implication was clear. Alara's stomach twisted. Me. I shouldn't have brought you into this. The moment I sent that invitation, I put you in danger. And then last night, he broke off, shaking his head. When Volkov looked at you, when he made that comment about fresh blood, I realized what I'd done. I'd painted a target on your back just by inviting you to my home. So why did you ask me to meet you here? Lucian was quiet for a long moment. The diner hummed around them, the hiss of the griddle, the clink of dishes, someone's phone buzzing. Finally, he said, because I'm selfish. Because even knowing the risk, even knowing I should stay away from you, I wanted to see you again. I wanted one morning where I could sit across from someone real and pretend that my life could be different. The honesty cut through her like a knife. Alara's throat tightened. That's not fair. I know. You can't say things like that and expect me to walk away. I'm not expecting anything. His voice was rough. I'm just telling you the truth. What you do with it is up to you. The pancakes arrived, massive stacks drowning in butter and syrup. The waitress dropped them on the table with the enthusiasm of someone who'd stopped caring about presentation around 1987. Alara stared at her plate, her appetite gone. I have clinical rotation in 2 hours, she said. After that, I have class until 6. Then I work a shift at the coffee shop near campus until midnight. Tomorrow I do it all over again. That's my life, Lucian. It's boring and exhausting and barely pays my rent, but it's mine. It's safe. It's normal. I know. But last night, when you asked me to stay, she forced herself to meet his eyes. For the first time in months, I felt something other than tired. I felt alive. And I hate that. I hate that the most interesting thing that's happened to me in years involves the kind of danger that could get me killed. Lucien reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his skin. I can walk away right now, pay the check, leave, and you'll never see me again. I can make sure Volkov knows you meant nothing, that you were just a random guest. I have enough pull to keep you safe from a distance. Is that what you want? No. The word was immediate, visceral. But what I want doesn't matter if it gets you hurt. Alara looked down at his hand so close to hers. She thought about the past 6 months of her life, the endless cycle of school and work and exhaustion, the way she'd stopped noticing sunrises or tasting her food or feeling anything except the grinding determination to just keep going. And then she thought about last night, about the way her pulse had raced when Lucien looked at her, the way danger had felt almost like waking up. She closed the distance between their hands. His fingers curled around hers immediately, warm and solid and real. Neither of them spoke. They just sat there in a Hell's Kitchen diner as the city woke up around them, holding hands across a table sticky with syrup, and Alara knew she was making a choice that would change everything. I want to try, she said quietly. Whatever this is, I want to try. Lucien's grip tightened. It won't be easy. I'm a nursing student working 3 jobs to stay in school. Nothing about my life is easy. A small smile touched his mouth. Fair point. They ate their pancakes, which really were as good as he'd promised, and talked about nothing important. She told him about her clinical rotation, about the attending physician who seemed to hate her for no reason, about the patient yesterday who'd started crying when Alara held her hand during a painful procedure. He told her about his niece, 7 years old and obsessed with dinosaurs, who'd informed him last week that his apartment needed more fossils. It was normal. almost aggressively normal. And Alara could feel both of them clinging to it, this brief window where they could pretend they were just two people getting to know each other over breakfast. But reality was waiting outside the diner, patient and inevitable. Lucien paid the check, left a tip that was probably more than the waitress made in a week, and walked Alara to the subway. The morning had fully arrived now, the city rushing past in its usual chaos. No one looked at them twice, just another couple saying goodbye on a street corner. "When can I see you again?" Lucien asked. Alara calculated her schedule, the endless Tetris of obligations. "Wednesday. I'm off clinical rotation and I don't work until 8. Dinner? Nothing fancy. I can't." She gestured at herself, at her thrift store coat and scuffed boots. "I don't belong in those places." "Neither do I," Lucien said. "Not really. But okay, somewhere normal. I'll text you the address." He'd gotten her number last night, she realized. Probably from the same resources that had tracked her down in the first place. She should object to that, should set boundaries about privacy and consent, but she just nodded. He leaned in, slow enough that she could pull away if she wanted, and pressed his lips to her forehead. Brief, chaste, but it sent electricity down her spine anyway. "Be careful," he said quietly. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd, and Alara was alone with the subway entrance yawning before her and the feeling that she'd just stepped off a cliff. Clinical rotation was a blur. Alara moved through her tasks on autopilot, checking vitals and changing dressings and documenting everything in the patient charts. Her supervising nurse, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, who missed nothing, kept giving her strange looks. "You okay, Quinn?" Patricia asked during a rare quiet moment. "You seem distracted." "Just tired," Alara lied. "Uh-huh." Patricia didn't look convinced. "Well, shake it off. We've got a fresh admission coming up from the ER. 53-year-old male, stabbing victim, stable but needs monitoring." Alara's stomach dropped. "Stabbing? Welcome to New York." Patricia was already moving toward the elevator bay. "Come on." The patient arrived 10 minutes later, looking pale and scared and much older than 53. The stab wound was in his shoulder, already sutured in the ER, but he'd lost a lot of blood. Alara helped settle him into bed, started a new IV line, hung antibiotics. "What happened?" she asked gently while adjusting his pillow. The man's eyes darted to the door, then back to her. "Wrong place, wrong time. That's all." "Did you see who did this?" "No." "Too fast, too rehearsed." "Didn't see nothing." Alara didn't push. She'd learned early in her training that some patients didn't want to talk, didn't want to remember, just wanted to heal and forget. But as she was leaving the room, she heard him muttering to himself, "Should have known better, should have stayed out of Volkov's territory." She froze in the doorway. Volkov. The name sent ice through her veins. She looked back, but the man had closed his eyes, either asleep or pretending to be. Alara found Patricia at the nurse's station. "The stabbing victim. Do we know anything about the circumstances?" Patricia glanced up from her charting. "Police took his statement in the ER. Why?" "Just curious?" "Don't be." Patricia's voice was firm. "We treat them. We document. We move on. We don't ask questions about things that aren't our business, especially when it involves—" She lowered her voice. "Gang violence." "Is that what this was?" "Probably. We get them in here sometimes. Usually they're the ones doing the stabbing, not receiving it, but—" She shrugged. "The city's changing. Power struggles, territorial disputes, people who used to run things getting pushed out by newcomers. It's ugly." Alara thought about Lucien's words at breakfast. "I'm trying to move away from what my father built." She thought about Volkov's smile, sharp as broken glass. She thought about the man in the hospital bed, too scared to even say what had happened to him. This was Lucien's world. This was what he was trying to escape. But could he? Could anyone really walk away from something that left bodies in its wake? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thank you for this morning. L." She stared at it for a long moment, then saved the number under his name. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She should say something, something normal, something that acknowledged the text without revealing the spiral of thoughts in her head. The pancakes were good, simple, safe, true. His response came immediately. Better than the champagne. Despite everything, she smiled. The next 3 days passed in a strange duality. On the surface, Alara's life continued exactly as before. Clinical rotations, classes, shifts at the coffee shop, collapsing into bed at ungodly hours only to wake up and do it all again. But underneath, something had shifted. She caught herself thinking about Lucien at odd moments, wondering what he was doing, whether he was safe, whether he was thinking about her too. He texted sporadically. Never anything heavy, just small observations, photos of his niece's latest dinosaur drawing, a question about whether she'd ever been to a particular restaurant. She responded when she could, in the gaps between obligations, and it felt like maintaining a parallel life. A secret life, Jenna noticed. "Okay, spill," her roommate demanded on Tuesday night, cornering Alara in their tiny kitchen. "Who is he?" "Who's who? Don't play dumb. You've been glued to your phone for 3 days, you're smiling at random moments. And you spent 20 minutes picking out an outfit for tomorrow, even though you said you were just getting dinner with a friend." Jenna's eyes were bright with curiosity. "So who is he?" Alara hedged. "Just someone I met at that party." "The mysterious invitation party you wouldn't tell me about?" "Yeah. And?" "And nothing. We're just getting to know each other." "Alara Quinn, you are the worst liar I've ever met." Jenna leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Come on. Give me something. Is he cute, rich, both?" "Both," Alara admitted. "And complicated." "Complicated how?" Alara thought about how to answer that. "He's a crime boss trying to go legitimate. His enemies might want to kill me. I'm pretty sure I'm falling for him anyway." "Yeah, that would go over well." "His family's in a difficult business," she said finally. "He's trying to get out of it, but it's not easy." Jenna's expression turned serious. "Alara, please tell me you're not dating someone in the mob." The silence stretched too long. "Oh my God," Jenna's voice rose. "You are. You're dating a mobster. What the hell are you thinking?" "I'm not. It's not like that. He's not." Alara struggled for words. "He's trying to be better. To build something legitimate. And I'm not dating him. We've talked. That's all." "That's all? That's all?" Jenna was pacing now, her hands flying. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? These people kill each other, Alara. They kill witnesses. They kill anyone who gets in their way." "He wouldn't hurt me." "How do you know that? You've known him for what, 4 days?" "I just know." But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Did she know? Really? She'd seen him threaten Volkov without blinking. She'd heard the edge in his voice when he talked about burning organizations to the ground. What made her so certain she was exempt from that violence? Jenna sat down heavily at their kitchen table. "I'm worried about you." "I know." Alara sat across from her. "I'm worried about me too. But Jenna, when I'm with him, I feel something I haven't felt in so long. And I know it's stupid and reckless and probably going to end badly, but I need to see where it goes." "That's the worst reasoning I've ever heard." "I know." Alara reached across and took her roommate's hand. "But I'm doing it anyway, and I need you to trust that I'll be careful, that I'll walk away if it gets too dangerous." Jenna squeezed her hand, then let go. "You're an idiot." "Yeah. But you're my idiot." She stood, grabbed her jacket. "I'm going to Mike's for the night. If you're not here when I get back tomorrow, I'm calling the cops." "Deal." After Jenna left, Alara sat alone in the kitchen, her roommate's words echoing. She should cancel tomorrow, should text Lucien right now and tell him this was a mistake, that she couldn't do this, that the risk was too high. Her phone was in her hand before she realized she'd reached for it. But instead of canceling, she found herself scrolling through their brief text history, looking at the photo of his niece's drawing, a T-Rex wearing a crown, reading his comment about a new Italian place in Brooklyn. Small, normal things that felt like handholds in the dark. She put the phone down without texting. Tomorrow. She'd decide tomorrow. The restaurant was small, tucked into a side street in Brooklyn that Alara had never heard of. No valet, no host stand, just a door with a faded sign and the smell of garlic and tomatoes drifting out. Lucien was waiting outside, hands in his pockets, looking somehow both relaxed and alert. "You came," he said when he saw her. "You sound surprised." "A little." He opened the door for her. "After the other night, after Volkov, I thought you might change your mind." "I almost did." Honesty felt important. "My roommate thinks I'm insane." "Your roommate's probably right." The restaurant was exactly what she'd needed. Dim lighting, checkered tablecloths, the kind of place where nobody cared who you were as long as you paid your bill. An older woman, Italian accent thick enough to cut, showed them to a corner table and rattled off specials in rapid-fire English mixed with dialect. Lucien ordered for both of them without asking, and Alara should have objected, but didn't. Something about the casual confidence, the way he navigated this space, felt comfortable instead of controlling. Wine arrived, bread, then pasta that made Alara close her eyes on the first bite. "Okay," she said. "You were right about the pancakes, and you're right about this. Do you have a map of every good restaurant in New York? Just the ones that matter." He twirled pasta onto his fork with the ease of someone who'd grown up eating this way. "My grandmother used to bring me here when I was a kid, before she died, before everything got complicated." "Tell me about her." So he did. And as the wine flowed and the pasta disappeared and the candle on their table burned lower, Lucien talked about his family in a way that felt nothing like the crime boss from the penthouse. He talked about his grandmother teaching him to cook, about his mother's garden in Queens, about his niece who wanted to be a paleontologist. He talked about his brother, dead 5 years now, car accident, leaving behind a wife and daughter that Lucien had sworn to protect. "That's why I'm doing this," he said, pushing his empty plate aside. "The legitimacy push. I want my niece to grow up in a world where her last name doesn't mean violence, where she can be a kid without bodyguards and threats and watching her back." "That's a good reason," Alara said softly. "It's the only reason that matters." He met her eyes. "But it's dangerous. Transitioning out means convincing people like Volkov that I'm not a threat while simultaneously building enough legitimate power that they can't just eliminate me. It's a tightrope, and the farther I walk, the more people want to push me off." "Is it worth it?" "I don't know yet." The admission was raw. "Ask me again in a year if I'm still alive." The casual reference to his own mortality sent a chill through her. "Don't joke about that." "I'm not joking." He reached across the table, his fingers finding hers. "This is the reality, Alara. People in my world die. They die young and they die violently, and sometimes they take innocent people with them. And if you're going to be in my life in any capacity, you need to understand that." "I do understand." "Do you?" His grip tightened. "Because Volkov saw you. He knows your face. He knows you matter to me, even though I tried to hide it. And men like him, they don't have lines they won't cross. They don't care about collateral damage." Alara's pulse hammered in her throat. "Are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to be honest." His eyes were storm dark in the candlelight. "I'm trying to give you every reason to walk away while you still can." "And what if I don't want to?" "Then you're either very brave or very stupid." "Can I be both?" A smile ghosted across his face, there and gone. "Yeah, you can be both." They finished their wine. Lucien paid. Cash, she noticed, no credit card trail. And they walked out into the Brooklyn night. The temperature had dropped, winter asserting itself. Alara pulled her coat tighter. "I'll get you a car," Lucien said, already reaching for his phone. "I can take the subway." "At 11 at night? No." "I do it all the time." "Not anymore." His voice had gone hard, protective. "Not while Volkov's circling." Alara wanted to argue, wanted to assert her independence, but the truth was, she was scared. Had been scared since that moment in the penthouse, when Volkov had looked at her like she was prey. So she nodded, and Lucien made a call, and 5 minutes later a black car pulled up. But before she got in, Lucien caught her hand. "Wait," he said. She turned. He was close now, close enough that she could see the silver threads in his dark hair, could smell whatever expensive cologne he wore beneath it. Close enough that when he cupped her face in his hands, she felt the calluses on his palms. "I want to kiss you," he said quietly, "but I need you to know what that means. It means you're mine. It means I'll protect you with everything I have, but it also means you're in this, really in this. No more casual dinners and pretending we're normal people. If I kiss you, Alara Quinn, you become part of my world, and I can't guarantee I can keep you safe." Her heart was a drum against her ribs. Every rational thought screamed at her to step back, to get in the car, to go home, and never see him again. She kissed him instead. His lips were warm despite the cold, firm and certain and tasting faintly of wine. For a moment he went still, surprised, and then his arms came around her and he was kissing her back with a hunger that stole her breath. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't careful. It was desperate and claiming and absolutely terrifying in its intensity. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. Brave and stupid, he murmured. Definitely both, she agreed. He helped her into the car, gave the driver her address, then stepped back. Alara watched him through the window as they pulled away. Standing alone on a Brooklyn street corner, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who'd just acquired something precious and fragile and had no idea how to keep it safe. Her phone buzzed before she was halfway home. Stay inside tomorrow. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm putting security on you. Her stomach twisted. Is something wrong? Just being careful. Please, Alara, do this for me. She stared at the text, at the pleas that felt like it had cost him something to type. Then she looked out at the city rushing past, at the thousands of lit windows hiding thousands of lives, and wondered which one of them might be Volkov's. Might be watching. Might be waiting. Okay. Thursday morning, Alara woke to someone knocking on her apartment door. She stumbled out of bed, half asleep, and peered through the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway. Tall, black, with short natural hair and the kind of posture that screamed military training. She looked directly at the peephole like she knew Alara was watching. Miss Quinn, my name is Simone Baptiste. Mr. Varelli sent me. Alara opened the door crack, the chain still engaged. He sent you? For your protection, yes. Simone's voice was calm, professional. May I come in? I'd rather not discuss security arrangements in the hallway. Against her better judgment, Alara unhooked the chain. Simone stepped inside, her eyes immediately scanning the apartment, exits, windows, sightlines. It took maybe 3 seconds. This isn't a secure location, she said flatly. It's my home. It's a 4th-floor walk-up with a fire escape outside your bedroom window and a front door lock a child could pick. Simone turned to face her. But Mr. Varelli anticipated you wouldn't want to relocate, so we're making do. We? There's another operative watching the building's entrance. I'll be with you whenever you leave. Non-negotiable. Alara's temper flared. He can't just assign me a bodyguard without asking. He can, and he did. Simone's expression didn't change. And before you get angry, you should know that Adrian Volkov's people have been asking questions about you. Your address, your schedule, your routines. So far they haven't found anything. Mr. Varelli's been scrubbing records as fast as they pop up, but it's only a matter of time. The floor seemed to tilt. Alara sat down hard on her threadbare couch. They're looking for me? Actively. Simone remained standing, alert. You kissed Mr. Varelli in public last night, on a street corner in Brooklyn. Someone saw. Someone always sees. Oh, God. Alara put her head in her hands. Hey. Simone's voice softened slightly. I know this is scary, but I'm very good at my job, and I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Okay? Alara looked up. Simone's face was serious, but not unkind. Why are you doing this? Because Mr. Varelli pays me extremely well. A pause. And because 3 years ago, he pulled my brother out of a situation that would have gotten him killed. I owe him. So I'm here, and I'm going to keep you safe, whether you like it or not. There was no point arguing. Alara could see that, so she just nodded, exhausted, and watched Simone do another sweep of the apartment. Her phone rang. Lucien. Did Simone arrive? He asked without preamble. Yeah, she's terrifying. That's why I hired her. His voice was tight. Alara, I'm sorry. I should have told you this was coming, but you knew I'd argue. Yes. She should be furious, should assert boundaries and demand he ask before making decisions about her life. But she thought about Volkov's people asking questions, about someone watching her kiss Lucian last night, about how quickly she'd gone from invisible to target. Thank you, she said instead. Silence on the other end, then, roughly, I'm going to fix this. How? I don't know yet, but I will. A pause. I have meetings today, tonight. I'm calling in favors, making deals. I'm going to handle Volkov. Lucien, I have to go. Keep Simone with you. Don't trust anyone. I'll call you later. He hung up. Alara stared at her phone, a sick feeling building in her stomach. This was escalating. Fast, too fast. A week ago, her biggest problem had been paying rent. Now she had a bodyguard and a mob boss making deals on her behalf. Jenna emerged from her bedroom, took one look at Simone, and went pale. Who the hell is that? This is Simone, Ilara said weakly. She's security. Security. Jenna's voice climbed an octave. You need security now? What the actual... Jenna, can we not... No, we're doing this. Jenna pointed at Simone. Can you give us a minute? Simone looked at Ilara, who nodded. The bodyguard stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind her, but undoubtedly staying close enough to hear everything. You need to end this, Jenna said the moment they were alone. Right now. Today. Whatever's going on with this guy, it's gotten way too dangerous. I know. Then why aren't you calling him and telling him to back off? Ilara wanted to explain. Wanted to find words for the way Lucien looked at her, the way he made her feel alive for the first time in months, the way he was trying so desperately to be better than what he'd been born into. But it all sounded insane when she tried to form the thoughts. Because I think I'm falling for him, she said instead. Jenna closed her eyes. Oh, Ilara. I know it's stupid and reckless, and it's not that. Jenna opened her eyes, and there was real fear in them. It's that falling for someone like him means you can't leave. Not easily. People like that, they don't just let you walk away. And if you fall all the way, if you let yourself really care, you'll be trapped. The words hit like a fist to the gut because they were true. Ilara could feel it already. The way thinking about leaving made her chest ache. The way the idea of never seeing Lucien again felt like losing something vital. I'll be careful, she said. Will you? Jenna's voice cracked. Because from where I'm standing, you've already got a bodyguard. You've already got his enemies looking for you. How much more careful can you be when you're already in the middle of it? Ilara had no answer for that. The next 2 days were a strange kind of hell. Simone shadowed Ilara everywhere, to clinical rotation, to class, to the coffee shop where she worked. The bodyguard was professional, mostly invisible, but her presence was a constant reminder that Ilara's life had veered into dangerous territory. Lucien texted sporadically, always brief. How are you? Simone treating you okay? Still in meetings? Nothing specific? Nothing that explained what he was doing or how he planned to fix the Volkov situation. On Saturday night, Ilara's shift at the coffee shop ended at 11. Simone walked her home, scanned the apartment, declared it clear. Ilara collapsed into bed, exhausted and wired and missing Lucien with an intensity that scared her. Her phone rang at 2 in the morning. She grabbed it, groggy. Unknown number. Hello? Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice she didn't recognize, male, accented, cold. You should have stayed away from Lucien Varelli. Ilara sat bolt upright, her heart hammering. Who is this? Consider this a courtesy call. A warning. The voice was almost bored. He can't protect you, no matter how many bodyguards he assigns, no matter what deals he makes. Eventually you'll be alone, and when you are... The line went dead. Ilara stared at her phone, shaking. Then she was dialing Lucien. Not caring that it was 2 a.m., not caring about anything except the terror clawing up her throat. He answered on the first ring. Ilara? What's wrong? Someone just called me. Her voice came out thin, reedy. They said you can't protect me. Where are you? Home. In bed. Simone's in the living room, but I'm coming. Don't move. Don't answer the door for anyone except me. Lucien. 30 minutes? I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up. Ilara sat in the darkness of her bedroom, clutching her phone, listening to the city hum outside her window. 28 floors below, people were living normal lives, going to bars, coming home from late shifts, walking dogs. She wasn't one of them anymore. Simone appeared in the doorway, gun drawn. I heard you on the phone. What happened? Ilara told her. Simone's expression went from alert to furious in seconds. They shouldn't have this number. How did they get this number? I don't know. Did they say anything else, make any specific threats? Just that Lucien can't protect me, that I'll be alone eventually. Ilara wrapped her arms around herself. Simone, I'm scared. The bodyguard holstered her weapon and sat on the edge of Ilara's bed, a surprisingly gentle gesture. I know, but listen to me. They called to scare you, to make you feel vulnerable. It's psychological warfare. They want you to panic, to run, to push Lucien away. Maybe I should. Do you want to? Alara thought about it. Really thought about it. The rational answer was yes. Run, disappear, go back to her boring, exhausting, safe life. But the thought of never seeing Lucien again, of never hearing his voice or feeling his hands in hers or watching him smile that rare, genuine smile, made something inside her crack. No, she whispered. Simone nodded. Then we dig in, we fight, and we trust that Mr. Varelli knows what he's doing. Lucien arrived in 25 minutes. Simone let him in, and he came straight to Alara's bedroom like he knew the layout by heart. Maybe he did. Maybe he'd studied floor plans and exit routes the same way Simone had scanned for threats. He looked wrecked, hair disheveled, suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. His eyes found hers immediately, and she saw the fear in them, raw and unconcealed. "Let me see your phone," he said. She handed it over. He pulled up the call log, took a screenshot, forwarded it to someone. His jaw was so tight she thought his teeth might crack. "Unknown number," he muttered. "Burner. Of course." "Lucien, I'm moving you." Not a question, a statement. "Tonight. There's a safe house in Westchester. Simone knows the location. You'll stay there until this is resolved." "I can't just leave. I have clinical rotation, class, work. None of that matters if you're dead." His voice was harsh, louder than she'd ever heard it. Then he seemed to catch himself, to pull back from whatever edge he'd been approaching. "I'm sorry. I'm not trying to control you, but Alara, they called you at 2 in the morning. They have your number. They know where you live. I can't—" His voice cracked. "I can't keep you safe here." Alara looked around her tiny bedroom. The posters on the walls, the stack of textbooks on her desk, the photos of her and Jenna taped to the mirror. This was her life, small and messy, and hers. "I'm not running," she said. "Alara, no." She stood, meeting his eyes. "You said that kissing you meant I was part of your world, that I was in this. So I'm in this. And I'm not hiding in Westchester while you handle Volkov. I'm staying." "You don't understand what you're asking." "Then explain it to me." She stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in his face, the fear. "Stop trying to protect me from the truth, and just tell me what's happening." Lucien ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was starting to recognize as his tell when he was stressed. "Volkov's making moves, aggressive ones. He hit one of my shipments last night, legitimate shipments, pharmaceutical supplies for a clinic I fund in the Bronx. Burned the whole truck. Then he sent soldiers to one of my construction sites and put 2 of my men in the hospital. Why? Because I'm not backing down. Because I told him I'm going legitimate, and he sees it as weakness. Because he thinks if he pushes hard enough, I'll either bend or break." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to war," Lucien said flatly. "I've tried negotiation. I've tried de-escalation. But Volkov doesn't want peace. He wants dominance. So I'm giving him a war." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Alara's mouth went dry. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm calling in every favor I have. It means I'm activating alliances I've spent years building. It means I'm going to dismantle his organization piece by piece until he has nothing left." His eyes were cold, harder than she'd ever seen them. "And it means I can't have you here, vulnerable, while this happens. If I leave, he wins." Alara's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. "He called to scare me, to make me run. If I do, he proves his point, that you can't protect what matters to you, that you're weak. I don't care what he thinks. Yes, you do." She took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. "This whole thing is about power and perception. You know that. If he scares me away, it undermines everything you're trying to build." Lucien closed his eyes. "I can't lose you." "You won't." She had no idea if that was true, but she said it anyway, with all the conviction she could muster. "But I'm staying, with Simone, with whatever security you need to put in place. I'm staying." When he opened his eyes again, they were bright with something that looked almost like pain. "You're going to get yourself killed. Then we'll die together. That's not funny." "I'm not joking." And she wasn't. In that moment, standing in her tiny bedroom with this dangerous man who'd somehow become the most important thing in her life, Alara knew she'd made her choice. Point of no return. No going back. Lucien kissed her, hard, desperate, tasting like fear and goodbye. She kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring every ounce of her conviction into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she could see the resignation in his face. Simone stays with you every second, he said. I'm adding 2 more operatives to watch the building. You don't go anywhere without telling me first. And if I say run, you run. No arguments. Okay. I mean it, Alara. If this goes sideways, but I'll run. She didn't know if she was lying, didn't know if she'd actually be able to leave him when the moment came. But she said it anyway because he needed to hear it. He pulled her close, his arms tight around her, and she felt him shaking. This man who'd threatened to burn down empires was shaking because he was afraid for her. I'm going to end this, he murmured into her hair, whatever it takes. And Alara, pressed against his chest with her heart hammering and her future uncertain, believed him. But she also knew that whatever it takes in Lucian's world meant blood, meant violence, meant crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. And she'd just told him she was okay with that. Point of no return, no going back. Outside, the city sprawled in the darkness, and somewhere in it, Adrian Volkov was waiting. The war started on a Tuesday. Alara didn't know it at first. She woke to Simone already on her phone, speaking in clipped, urgent tones to someone on the other end. The bodyguard's face was carved from stone, giving nothing away, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the device. Understood, Simone said finally. Yes, I'll tell her. She hung up and turned to Alara, who'd emerged from her bedroom still in pajamas, dread already pooling in her stomach. What happened? Volkov hit 3 of Mr. Varelli's properties last night. A warehouse in Red Hook, a restaurant in Little Italy, and a construction office in Queens. No casualties, but significant damage. Mr. Varelli is retaliating as we speak. Alara's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on the couch. Retaliating how? I don't have those details. But he wanted you to know he's handling it. Simone's expression softened slightly. He also said to tell you not to worry. Not to worry, Alara repeated numbly. There's a gang war happening, and I'm not supposed to worry. It's not a gang war. It's a strategic dismantling. Simone moved to the window, checking the street below out of habit. Mr. Varelli isn't some street thug throwing punches. He's surgical, precise. He'll go after Volkov's infrastructure, supply lines, financial holdings, key personnel. He'll bleed him slowly until there's nothing left. The clinical description made it worse somehow. Alara wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the apartment's stuffiness. How long will this take? Days? Maybe weeks. Depends on how stubborn Volkov is. Simone glanced back at her. You still have to live your life, Miss Quinn. Go to your clinical rotation. Go to class. The best thing you can do right now is act normal. Normal. The word felt like a joke. But Alara got dressed anyway, went through her morning routine with Simone watching, and headed to the hospital. The subway ride was tense. Simone positioned herself between Alara and the rest of the car, her eyes constantly scanning. Every sudden movement made Alara flinch. Every stranger felt like a threat. Clinical rotation was a blur. She checked vitals, administered medications, changed dressings, all on autopilot. Patricia noticed. You're distracted again, the supervising nurse said during their lunch break. What's going on with you, Quinn? Family stuff, Alara lied. It's complicated. Well, uncomplicate it fast. You nearly gave the wrong dosage to Mr. Chen in 304. I caught it before you administered, but that's the kind of mistake that ends careers. Patricia's voice was sharp, but not unkind. I know nursing school is brutal. I know you're working multiple jobs and probably not sleeping enough, but you need to be present when you're here. These patients deserve that. Shame burned through Alara. She'd never made a medication error before, never even come close. You're right. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. Patricia softened slightly. You're a good nurse, Quinn. Don't throw it away because of whatever's happening outside these walls. Alara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She finished her shift without further incident, hyper-aware of every movement, every calculation. By the time Simone escorted her home, exhaustion had settled into her bones. Her phone buzzed as she walked into her apartment. Lucien. Can't talk tonight. Things are moving fast. Stay with Simone. I love you. Alara stared at the last 3 words. He'd never said that before. Neither had she. and he'd said it via text, in the middle of whatever violence he was orchestrating, like he might not get another chance. She typed back with shaking fingers. I love you too. Be careful. The response was immediate. Always. But Alara knew it was a lie. There was nothing careful about what he was doing. Wednesday brought news coverage. Not about Lucian specifically, he was too careful for that, but about gang-related incidents across the city. A suspicious fire in Red Hook, vandalism at a restaurant, break-ins at several businesses. The reporters used vague language, danced around specifics, but Alara could read between the lines. This was Lucian and Volkov, trading blows in the shadows. Jenna came home that evening, took one look at Alara's face and the ever-present Simone, and headed straight for her bedroom without a word. The silent treatment was somehow worse than the arguing. It meant her roommate had given up trying to talk sense into her. Alara tried to study for an upcoming exam, but the words swam on the page. She tried to sleep but kept jerking awake, heart pounding, convinced she'd heard something. At 3 a.m., she gave up and sat by the window, watching the street below. A black sedan was parked across from her building, had been there for hours. One of Lucien's people, probably, keeping watch. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it just reminded her how fundamentally her life had changed. 2 weeks ago, she'd been invisible. Now she needed armed guards. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Alara's blood turned to ice. She almost didn't answer, but then she thought, if it was Volkov's people again, she wanted to know what they'd say, wanted to hear their threats so she could prepare. She answered. Hello? Alara Quinn, a woman's voice this time, older, cultured, with an accent she couldn't place. My name is Isabella Varelli. I believe you saved my life 3 months ago. Lucien's mother. Alara's grip tightened on the phone. Mrs. Varelli, yes. How are you? Better than I should be, thanks to you. A pause. I'm calling because I need to see you, tonight, if possible. It's important. Does Lucien know you're calling? No, and I'd prefer to keep it that way, at least for now. Isabella's voice was gentle but firm. Please, dear. There are things you need to know. Things my son won't tell you because he's trying to protect you. Every instinct screamed trap. This could be Volkov, using a voice that sounded like Isabella. This could be a setup, a way to get her alone and vulnerable. How do I know you're really his mother? You don't, Isabella said simply. But I can tell you that you held my hand when I was terrified, that you told me to focus on your voice while the machines screamed around us, that you hummed something, I never knew what it was, while they shocked my heart back into rhythm. Alara's throat closed. She had done that, had hummed an old lullaby her own mother used to sing, something to ground herself as much as the patient. No one should know that detail except her and Isabella. Where? She asked. Isabella gave her an address in Queens. A park, public, plenty of witnesses. 1 hour. Come alone, but I understand if your security follows at a distance. Just you and me, though. Please. She hung up before Alara could respond. Alara sat frozen, phone in hand, mind racing. This was insane. Lucien had explicitly told her not to go anywhere without telling him first. But Isabella had said he wouldn't tell her things, that he was hiding something. What if it was about Volkov? What if Isabella knew something that could end this? She looked at Simone, asleep on the couch, gun within easy reach. The bodyguard had been running on fumes for days, catching sleep in short bursts. She looked younger in sleep, vulnerable. Alara made a decision she knew she'd probably regret. She grabbed her coat, slipped her phone into her pocket, and left the apartment as quietly as possible. Took the stairs instead of the elevator, emerged onto the street, and started walking. The black sedan was still there, but the driver seemed to be dozing. She made it 3 blocks before guilt gnawed at her enough to pull out her phone. She should text Lucian, should tell someone where she was going, but Isabella had said to come alone. And if Alara told Lucien, he'd either stop her or show up himself, and whatever his mother wanted to say would go unsaid. She kept walking. The subway ride to Queens felt endless. Every person who got on the car made her pulse spike. Every announcement felt like a warning. By the time she emerged at the station nearest the park, her hands were shaking. The park was small, poorly lit, mostly empty at this hour. A few teenagers huddled on benches, passing something between them. A homeless man slept under a tree. And on a bench near the center, a woman sat waiting. Isabella Varelli looked exactly as Alara remembered, elegant, even in casual clothes, silver threading through dark hair, kind eyes that had been terrified 3 months ago, but now were calm. She stood when she saw Alara approaching. "Thank you for coming," Isabella said. "You shouldn't have asked me to." Alara stayed a few feet back, still wary. "If Lucien finds out, he'll be furious." "I know." Isabella gestured to the bench. "Please sit. This won't take long, but you need to hear it." Alara sat, every muscle tense, ready to bolt. Isabella settled beside her, leaving careful distance between them. "My son loves you," Isabella said, without preamble. "I've never seen him like this. Not with anyone. He's terrified for you, and that fear is making him reckless. He's trying to protect me. He's trying to protect you by going to war with Adrian Volkov. Do you understand what that means?" Isabella's voice was soft, but urgent. "Volkov isn't just another rival. He's connected. Politicians, judges, federal agents, he has people everywhere. And he's patient. Lucien thinks he can dismantle Volkov's empire quickly, surgically, but Volkov is already 3 steps ahead." Alara's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean that Volkov has been planning this for months, long before you entered the picture. He's been waiting for Lucien to make a move toward legitimacy, because that's when he's most vulnerable, when he's got one foot in each world." Isabella's hands twisted in her lap. "And then you appeared, and Lucien fell for you, and Volkov saw his opening." "I don't understand." "Volkov doesn't want to kill Lucien. He wants to break him, wants to prove that going legitimate is weakness, that you can't escape this life, that trying just gets the people you love destroyed." Isabella's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "He's going to come for you, Alara, not to kill you. That would be too easy. He's going to take you, and he's going to use you to force Lucien back into the darkness." The words hit like physical blows. Alara couldn't breathe. "How do you know this?" "Because I still have friends in the old world, people who owe me favors from when my husband was alive, and one of them warned me yesterday that Volkov's been asking very specific questions about you, your routines, your weaknesses, your family." "I don't have family. My parents died when I was 16. "I know. Volkov knows too, which means you have no one he can leverage except Lucien." Isabella reached out, her hand hovering near Alara's but not quite touching. "You need to leave. Tonight. Disappear. I have money, resources. I can get you somewhere safe, somewhere Volkov will never find you." Alara's mind spun. This was exactly what Lucien had wanted, for her to go to the safe house, to hide. But Isabella was talking about more than hiding. She was talking about running forever. "What about Lucien? He'll survive. He always has." Isabella's voice cracked slightly. "But if you stay, if Volkov takes you, Lucien will burn the entire city down to get you back. He'll abandon everything he's worked for. He'll become his father all over again. And I can't—" She pressed a hand to her mouth, composing herself. "I can't watch my son destroy himself for love." "He wouldn't want me to run." "Of course he wouldn't. He'd want you to stay so he can play hero, so he can prove he's strong enough to protect you. But he's not, Alara. Not against this." Isabella's eyes locked on hers, desperate and pleading. "Please, for his sake, if not your own, leave." Before Alara could respond, headlights swept across the park. A car pulled up to the curb, sleek and black and ominous. The doors opened. Adrian Volkov stepped out. Alara shot to her feet, adrenaline flooding her system. This was a trap. It had been a trap all along. Isabella had lured her here But Isabella looked as shocked as Alara felt. No, this wasn't— I didn't— "Of course you didn't," Volkov said, approaching with that same casual confidence he'd displayed at the penthouse. "You're far too noble to set a trap, Isabella. That's always been your weakness." He smiled at Alara. "She really did call you out of genuine concern." How touching. 2 men flanked him, both armed, both watching Alara like she might try to run. She calculated the distance to the subway station, to the street, to anywhere that might offer safety. Too far. All of it too far. "Let her go, Adrian," Isabella said, standing. "This is between you and my son." "That's where you're wrong. This stopped being between me and Lucien the moment he decided she mattered." Volkov's eyes never left Alara. "Come here, Miss Quinn." Go to hell. He laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. There's that fire. I wondered if it was real or just an act for Lucian's benefit. He took a step closer. His men did the same. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way, you walk to my car. The hard way, they drag you. Either works for me, but I imagine you'd prefer to maintain some dignity. Alara's hand slipped into her pocket, fingers closing around her phone. If she could just... One of Volkov's men moved faster than she expected, grabbing her wrist and twisting. The phone clattered to the pavement. Pain shot up her arm, but she bit down on the scream, refusing to give them the satisfaction. "Let her go!" Isabella was shouting now, trying to reach them, but the second man blocked her path. "Adrian, please, she's innocent in all of this." "No one's innocent, Isabella. You of all people should know that." Volkov nodded to his man, who released Alara's wrist only to grab her upper arm in a grip that would definitely leave bruises. "Your son has cost me 3 warehouses, 2 trucks, and $500,000 in the past 48 hours. He thinks he's dismantling my empire. In reality, he's just announcing how much he cares about you." He leaned in close enough that Ilar could smell his cologne. Expensive, cloying. "You're the leverage I need to remind Lucian Varelli who he really is. A thug. A criminal. His father's son, no matter how many legitimate businesses he hides behind." "Lucian will kill you for this," Alara spat. "I'm counting on him trying." Volkov straightened, smiling. "That's the whole point." They dragged her toward the car. Alara fought, kicked, twisted, tried to break free, but the man holding her was twice her size and knew exactly how to control someone resisting. Isabella was still shouting, her voice going hoarse. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Too late. Everything was too late. They shoved Alara into the back seat. Volkov slid in beside her while his men took the front. The doors locked with a heavy click that sounded like a cell slamming shut. "Drive," Volkov said calmly. The car pulled away from the curb. Through the rear window, Alara saw Isabella standing alone in the park, her phone pressed to her ear, her face illuminated by streetlights and terror. Then they turned a corner, and she was gone. Alara's heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere private, somewhere Lucian will have to work very hard to find." Volkov settled back in his seat, utterly relaxed. "Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you, not unless your boyfriend forces my hand." "You're insane. I'm practical." He pulled out his own phone, began typing. "Lucien's been making moves against me for weeks now, thinking I wouldn't notice, thinking his political connections and his legitimate fronts made him untouchable. But every man has a pressure point, Miss Quinn, and you're his." The car headed toward the water. Ilar could smell it, the East River, oily and cold. They drove in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Finally, they pulled into what looked like an industrial complex. Abandoned warehouses, rusted machinery, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Panic clawed at Alara's throat. She thought about Lucien waking up to the news that she'd been taken. Thought about Simone discovering her gone. Thought about Isabella's warning that this would destroy him, would turn him back into the monster he was trying not to be. They dragged her out of the car and into one of the warehouses. Inside, it was cold and vast and echoey. A single chair sat in the middle of the space, industrial and bolted to the floor. They pushed her into it. "Tie her," Volkov ordered. Alara fought again, but it was useless. Zip ties cut into her wrists, securing her arms behind the chair. Her ankles were bound to the legs. She couldn't move, could barely breathe around the fear crushing her lungs. Volkov crouched in front of her, his expression almost sympathetic. "I know you're scared. That's natural. But if you cooperate, this will all be over soon. Lucian will make the right choice and you'll go home." "What choice?" Alara's voice came out hoarse. "He can have you, or he can have his legitimacy. He can't have both." Volkov stood, brushing invisible dust from his pants. "I'm going to offer him a deal. He backs off, returns to the old ways, acknowledges my authority in certain territories, and I let you go unharmed. Or," he paused for effect, "he continues this foolish crusade, and I start sending him pieces of you until he learns his lesson." Bile rose in Alara's throat. "He'll never agree." "Then he's stupider than I thought." Volkov pulled out his phone, angled it toward her, and took a photo. Alara tried to look defiant, tried not to let the terror show, but she knew it was written all over her face. Volkov typed something, sent the photo. And now we wait. The response came within seconds. Alara couldn't see the phone, but she saw Volkov's smile widen. He's on his way. How romantic. He pocketed his phone. This should be entertaining. That's it. Time moved strangely in the warehouse. Could have been an hour. Could have been 3. Alara's wrists ached where the zip ties cut into skin. Her shoulder screamed from the unnatural position, but worse than the physical pain was the knowledge that she'd done this to herself. She'd ignored Lucian's warnings. She'd left without telling anyone. She'd walked right into this because she'd trusted Isabella, or wanted to trust her, and now Lucien was going to have to choose between her and everything he'd worked for. Volkov's men stood by the warehouse entrance, smoking and talking in low voices. Volkov himself had retreated to a makeshift office in the corner, making phone calls, running his empire from a folding chair. He looked utterly unconcerned, like kidnapping was just another item on his to-do list. Alara tried to think, tried to find some angle, some way out, but her mind kept spinning back to the same conclusion. She'd ruined everything. Lucien had been right to try to send her away. She was a liability, a weakness, exactly what Volkov said. A commotion at the entrance snapped her back to the present. The warehouse doors burst open. Lucien stood silhouetted in the doorway, alone, hands raised to show he was unarmed. But his face, God, his face. Alara had seen him calm, had seen him angry, had even seen him afraid. But this was something else entirely. This was rage barely contained, violence coiled so tight it was a miracle it wasn't spilling out. Here already? Volkov called, standing. I'm impressed. You must have been speeding. Where is she? Lucien's voice was flat, dead, terrifying in its control. She's fine. Uncomfortable, but fine. Volkov gestured to Alara. See for yourself. Lucien's eyes found her. For a second, just a second, the mask slipped and she saw raw, desperate relief. Then it was gone, replaced by that terrible control. Let her go, he said. In a moment. First we talk. There's nothing to talk about. I disagree. Volkov strolled closer to Alara, one hand trailing along the back of her chair. She flinched at the touch. I think we have quite a lot to discuss, starting with how you've been systematically attacking my operations for the past week. You started this when you came to my home and threatened her. I didn't threaten her. I simply observed that she existed. You're the one who decided that was a threat. Volkov's smile was sharp. But regardless of who started it, I'm ending it, here, tonight. By kidnapping an innocent woman? By reminding you of something you seem to have forgotten. Volkov's hand landed on Alara's shoulder, heavy and possessive. She tried to jerk away, but couldn't move far. You're not one of them, Lucien. You can dress in their suits, do business in their boardrooms, donate to their charities, but you'll always be what your father made you, a criminal, a killer, and pretending otherwise just gets people hurt. Let her go. Each word was bitten off, precise. Make me a deal first. What deal? Volkov squeezed Alara's shoulder hard enough to make her gasp. Lucien's entire body went rigid, his hands clenching into fists. You abandon this legitimacy nonsense, Volkov said. You acknowledge my authority in the territories we've disputed. You pay reparations for the damage you've caused to my operations, and in exchange, I give you back your girl and we call this a draw. And if I refuse, then I hurt her. Simple, factual. Nothing fatal, nothing permanent, just enough to make you understand that you don't get to have both worlds. Lucien's jaw was so tight, Alara thought she could hear his teeth grinding. She watched him calculate, watched him weigh options, saw the exact moment he made his decision. Okay, he said quietly. Alara's heart stopped. Lucien, no. Shut up, he said, not looking at her, still staring at Volkov. You have a deal. Let her go and I'll give you whatever you want. Triumph flickered across Volkov's face. That's more like it, see? Deep down, you know. Lucien moved. Later, Alara would try to describe it and fail. 1 second, he was standing 10 feet away, unarmed and seemingly defeated. The next, he'd closed the distance, grabbed Volkov by the throat, and slammed him against a support beam hard enough to crack bone. Volkov's men reached for their weapons, but more people poured through the warehouse entrance. Lucien's people, heavily armed, moving with military precision. Gunfire erupted. Someone screamed. Lucien's hand tightened on Volkov's throat. "You made a mistake." "What?" Volkov choked out. "You thought I came alone. You thought I was desperate enough to deal." Lucien's voice was ice and venom. "But the only reason I'm here is to watch you die." More gunfire, shouts, the sharp crack of bone breaking. Alara couldn't see it all. Her chair faced the wrong direction, but she could hear it, could smell the cordite and blood. Lucien released Volkov, who crumpled to the ground, gasping. Then Lucien was crossing to Alara, pulling a knife from somewhere and cutting through the zip ties with quick, efficient movements. "I've got you," he said, and his voice was different now, gentle, almost broken. "I've got you. You're okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Her hands came free, her ankles. Lucien pulled her up and into his arms, and she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. He held her like she might disappear, his face buried in her hair. "I told you to stay with Simone," he said roughly. "I told you, I know, I'm sorry. Isabella called, and I thought, I know. She called me after Volkov took you, screaming, crying, blaming herself." His arms tightened. "This is my fault. I should have—" An explosion of movement behind them. Alara caught a glimpse of Volkov lunging to his feet, gun in hand, aimed directly at Lucien's back. She didn't think. She pushed Lucien aside, hard, and the gunshot was deafening in the warehouse. Pain bloomed in her side, white-hot and devastating. She went down hard, the concrete cold against her cheek. Everything slowed down. Lucien was shouting her name. Someone else was shooting. Volkov. Where was Volkov? More gunshots. Final, definitive. Then silence, except for ringing ears and someone's ragged breathing. Lucien's hands were on her, turning her over, pressing against her side where the pain was. "No, no, no, Alara. Stay with me. Look at me." She tried to focus on his face, but everything was getting dim around the edges. Is he... He's dead. You're okay. You're going to be okay. I need you to stay awake." His voice cracked. "Don't you fucking die on me. Do you hear me? Don't you dare." "Hurts," she managed. "I know, baby. I know. Help is coming. Just stay with me." His hand was slick with her blood, pressed hard against the wound. She could feel the wetness spreading, warm and wrong. "You're a nurse, right? Tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this." "Pressure," she whispered. "Keep pressure. Don't move me." But he was already lifting her, cradling her against his chest as he stood. Someone was bringing a car around. Sirens wailed in the distance, police or ambulance, she couldn't tell. "I love you," Lucien was saying, over and over like a prayer or a curse. "I love you. You're not dying. I won't let you die. Just stay awake. Keep your eyes open." Alara tried. She really did. But the darkness was so heavy, and she was so tired, and Lucien's voice was getting farther away even though he was right there holding her. The last thing she heard before everything went black was him screaming for a medic. Then nothing. Consciousness returned in pieces. White ceiling tiles, the steady beep of monitors, antiseptic smell. Pain, muted, distant, wrapped in pharmaceutical cotton. Hospital. Alara tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Fire lanced through her side, sharp enough to steal her breath. "Don't move," Lucien's voice rough with exhaustion. He was beside her bed, unshaven, still wearing clothes stained with what might be blood, hers, probably. "You had surgery. Bullet hit your spleen. They had to remove it." She turned her head to look at him. He looked wrecked, eyes hollow, face pale, hands shaking slightly where they gripped the edge of her bed. "Volkov?" she croaked. "Dead. I put 3 bullets in him myself after you—" He broke off, pressing the heels of his hands to his eyes. "Jesus Christ, Alara. You pushed me out of the way. You took a bullet meant for me." Seemed like... She had to pause for breath. Seemed like the thing to do. It was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. His voice broke completely. "You almost died. Your heart stopped in the ambulance. They had to—" He couldn't finish. Alara reached for his hand with her good arm. He grabbed it like a drowning man grabbing a rope. "I'm okay," she said. You're not. You're in a hospital bed missing an organ because of me. Because of Volkov. Because I dragged you into my world. The anguish in his voice was raw, bleeding. My mother was right. Isabella called me after Volkov took you, told me what she'd said to you about running, about how I'd destroy myself trying to save you. She was wrong. Was she? Lucian looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. I killed 6 men tonight, Ilara. Shot them without hesitation. Would have killed more if they'd been there. I became exactly what I've been trying not to be, all because Volkov took you. You got me back. I almost lost you anyway. His hand tightened on hers to the point of pain. When you went down, when I saw the blood, I can't do this. I can't watch you die because of my choices. Dread, cold and sharp, cut through the medication fog. What are you saying? I'm saying you were right to consider running. Isabella was right. You can't be part of this world. It'll kill you. If not today, then someday. And I can't... His voice splintered. I can't be the reason you die. Lucienne, you should have stayed away from me at that party. Should have walked out when you had the chance. Should have listened to every instinct telling you this was dangerous. He stood abruptly, her hand slipping from his. I'm having Simone take you to the safe house as soon as you're discharged. You'll stay there until I can arrange something more permanent. Somewhere far from New York. Far from me. No. Panic gave her strength. She tried to sit up again despite the pain. No, you don't get to make that decision for me. It's already made. His expression was stone, but his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I love you too much to let you stay in the crossfire. Volkov's dead, but there will be others. There are always others. And next time I might not get to you in time. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. The hell I don't! The shout sent agony through her side, but she didn't care. You told me that kissing you meant I was yours, that I was part of your world. You don't get to take that back now just because things got hard. Things got hard? Lucian's voice rose to match hers. You were shot. You flatlined. I held you while your blood soaked through my hands, and you think this is just things getting hard? Yes, because this is what love looks like in your world. Messy and dangerous and terrifying. But I chose it. I chose you. She was crying now, tears hot on her cheeks. You don't get to decide I can't handle it. I'm deciding anyway. He was at the door now, one hand on the frame. Simone will explain everything when you're stronger. I've set up accounts for you, money, documents for a new identity if you want one, anything you need. What I need is you bastard. Don't walk away from me. He looked back at her one last time, and the grief in his face was so profound it stopped her breath. I have to, he said quietly, because if I don't, you'll die. And I can't survive that. Then he was gone, the door swinging shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. Ilara lay in the hospital bed alone, bleeding inside in ways that had nothing to do with the bullet wound, and realized that Volkov had won after all. Not by killing her, by proving that loving Lucian Varelli meant losing everything, including him. 3 days. 3 days since Lucian walked out of her hospital room. 3 days since Ilara had heard his voice, or seen his face, or felt anything except the hollow ache where her heart used to be. Simone sat in the chair by the window, ever present, ever watchful. The bodyguard had tried to explain the arrangements. The safe house in Connecticut, the money Lucian had set aside, the new identity paperwork already in progress. Ilara had listened to none of it, just stared at the ceiling tiles and counted her heartbeats and wondered how someone could say they loved you and then abandon you in the same breath. You need to eat something, Simone said for the 3rd time that morning. Ilara ignored her. The breakfast tray sat untouched on the table beside her bed. Everything tasted like ash anyway. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it with desperate hope. Maybe Lucian, maybe he'd changed his mind. But it was just Jenna. The hospital says you're being discharged tomorrow. I'm coming to get you. Ilara typed back with her good hand. Simone's handling it. The response was immediate. Fuck Simone. You're my roommate and I'm bringing you home. Home. The word felt foreign. Ilara wasn't sure she had a home anymore. Just an apartment she couldn't afford and a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. She was typing a response when her door opened. Not a nurse. Not a doctor. Isabella Varelli. Lucien's mother looked older than she had in the park, worn down by guilt and grief. She clutched a paper bag in both hands like a shield. "I brought you soup," Isabella said quietly. "The good kind, from the Italian place." Alara should tell her to leave, should scream at her that this was her fault, that if she hadn't called that night, none of this would have happened. But she was too tired for anger. "Come in," she said instead. Isabella entered, setting the bag on the table. Simone watched her with the kind of alertness that suggested she'd been briefed on the park incident, but she didn't intervene. "How are you feeling?" Isabella asked. "Like I got shot because your son's enemies decided I was leverage." The bluntness made Isabella flinch. "Good." Alara wanted her to feel it. "I'm so sorry," Isabella said, and her voice cracked. "I thought I was helping. I thought if I could convince you to leave before things escalated. You walked me right into a trap. I know. I've been replaying it for 3 days. How I should have told Lucien immediately. How I should have met you somewhere public, somewhere safer. How I should have—" She stopped, pressing her fingers to her eyes. "But I didn't. And you almost died. And now my son is destroying himself because he thinks loving you is a death sentence." Alara's throat tightened. "He left me here." "I know. He said he loved me too much to let me stay. What kind of logic is that? The logic of a man who's watched everyone he cares about get hurt because of his choices." Isabella sat carefully in the chair Simone had vacated. "His father died in his arms. His brother was killed by a drunk driver, but Lucien always blamed himself. Thought if he'd kept Marco out of the business, if he'd been a better brother, somehow it wouldn't have happened. And his niece—" She paused. "He sees his niece growing up in this shadow, and it eats him alive. So he pushes away anyone who might add to the body count." "Exactly." Isabella's eyes were red-rimmed. "But this time is different. This time he didn't just lose someone. He chose to walk away while you're still breathing, still here, still wanting him, and it's killing him." "Good," Alara said viciously. Then, because she couldn't maintain the anger, "How is he? Not sleeping, not eating, working 18-hour days cleaning up the aftermath of Volkov's death." Isabella twisted her hands in her lap. "There's a power vacuum now. Other players circling, trying to claim territory. Lucien's been forced back into the violence he was trying to escape, just to keep his people safe." So Isabella had been right after all. Loving Alara had turned Lucien back into his father's son. "Why are you telling me this?" Alara asked. "Because you need to know what you're fighting for, if you're going to fight." Isabella met her eyes. "Are you?" Alara thought about the safe house, the new identity, a life somewhere far from New York, far from danger, far from Lucien. She could do it, could disappear, could go back to school somewhere else, finish her degree, become a nurse, live a normal, safe, boring life. The thought made her want to scream. "He doesn't want me to," she said. "He's an idiot?" Isabella's vehemence was startling. "My son is brilliant in many ways, but when it comes to his own happiness, he's a complete fool. He thinks sacrifice equals love, that walking away is the same as protecting you. Isn't it? No. It's just cowardice dressed up as nobility." Isabella leaned forward. "You want to know what real protection looks like? It's teaching you how to defend yourself. It's building a life strong enough to withstand threats. It's fighting beside you, not fighting for you from a distance." Alara's pulse quickened. "You sound like you have a plan." "Not a plan. An offer." Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Plain white, just a phone number. "This is my personal line. If you decide you want to fight for my stubborn, self-sacrificing son, call me. I have resources, connections, things Lucien doesn't even know about from my time as his father's wife." "Why would you help me?" "Because I've been watching him try to go legitimate for 3 years. And the only time I've seen him truly happy, truly at peace, was the handful of days he spent with you." Isabella's voice was fierce. "And because I'm tired of watching him punish himself for sins that aren't entirely his own." She stood, leaving the card on the bedside table. "The soup is still warm. Eat something. You're going to need your strength." Then she was gone, and Alara was alone with Simone and a business card and a choice that felt impossible. Discharge came the next morning. Jenna arrived with a duffel bag of clean clothes and an expression that dared anyone to tell her she couldn't take her roommate home. Simone tried to argue protocol, but Jenna had apparently reached her limit on taking orders from Lucien. Yen's people. She's coming with me, Jenna said flatly. If you have a problem with that, you can take it up with her, but I'm not leaving without her. Alara, dressed in sweatpants and a shirt that didn't press against her bandages, looked at Simone. It's okay. I'll call if I need you. The bodyguard's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Mr. Varelli isn't going to like this. Mr. Varelli doesn't get a vote anymore, Jenna snapped. The ride back to the apartment was quiet. Jenna helped Alara up the 4 flights. The elevator was still broken, of course, and settled her on the couch with pillows and blankets and a fierceness that made Alara's eyes sting. I'm sorry, Alara said. For what? For not listening. For getting involved with him in the first place. Stop. Jenna sat beside her, careful not to jostle her side. You fell in love. That's not something to apologize for, even if the guy is a dramatic asshole with a messiah complex. Despite everything, Alara laughed. It hurt her side, but felt good anyway. So what now? Jenna asked. Are you taking the safe house deal? Alara thought about Isabella's card, burning a hole in her pocket. I don't know. Well, you don't have to decide today. Today, we're going to watch terrible reality TV and eat ice cream and pretend that mobsters and gunshot wounds and star-crossed love affairs don't exist. It was a good plan. They made it almost 2 hours before someone knocked on the door. Jenna checked the peephole and went rigid. You've got to be kidding me. She yanked the door open. Isabella stood in the hallway, not alone this time. Beside her was a young woman, early 20s, petite, with Lucien's dark eyes and a 7-year-old girl clutching her hand. I'm Marco's widow, the young woman said without preamble. Angela, this is Sophie. We need to talk to Alara. Jenna looked back at Alara, eyebrows raised in a silent question. Alara nodded, and Jenna stepped aside. Sophie, Lucien's niece, made a beeline for the couch, scrambling up beside Alara with the fearlessness of a child who'd been told she was welcome. Uncle Luke is sad, she announced. Nonna says it's because of you. Sophie, Angela said sharply. Well, she did. The girl fixed Alara with a solemn stare. He won't play dinosaurs with me anymore. He just works all the time and looks tired. Alara's chest ached. I'm sorry. Do you love him? Sophie asked, with the blunt honesty only children possess. Sophie, that's not appropriate, Angela started, but Alara cut her off. Yes, she said, looking at this little girl who represented everything Lucien was trying to protect. I love him very much. Then why aren't you with him? Because he thinks it's safer for me if we're apart. Sophie considered this with the gravity of someone much older. That's stupid. You're safer together. Haven't you seen The Lion King? Despite the situation, Angela cracked a smile. We've been watching a lot of Disney lately. Uncle Luke is Simba, Sophie continued, warming to her theme, and you're Nala. And Nala doesn't run away just because the hyenas are scary. She stays and fights with Simba. She's not wrong, Isabella said quietly. Metaphorically speaking, Alara looked at these 3 women, 4 counting Jenna, who'd invaded her apartment with their opinions and their determination and their absolute refusal to let her disappear quietly. Why are you all here? She asked. Because Lucien is an idiot, Angela said bluntly. And because we're tired of watching him suffer for some misguided idea of protecting you. He's trying to do the right thing. The right thing would be trusting you to make your own choices. Isabella moved closer. He's so busy being noble that he's not seeing what's right in front of him. You're not some fragile civilian who needs to be locked away. You pushed him out of the way of a bullet. You survived a kidnapping and a gunshot wound, and you're still here, still fighting. You're stronger than he gives you credit for. I'm a nursing student with $40,000 in debt and a thrift store wardrobe, Alara said. I don't know how to fight mobsters. Then we teach you. Angela's voice was steel. I grew up in this world. I know how it works, the power plays, the alliances, the ways to protect yourself without Lucien hovering over you like a bodyguard. And I know the old guard, Isabella added, the people who remember when Lucien's father ran things, who might be convinced to support Lucien's transition to legitimacy if presented with the right incentives. And I know about dinosaurs, Sophie chimed in case that helps. Alara couldn't help it. She laughed, then winced as pain lanced through her side. but the laughter felt like life returning to dead tissue. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. "That you stop letting my son make decisions for you," Isabella said. "That you take control of your own story, and that you show him, show everyone, that being with you doesn't make him weaker. It makes him stronger." "How?" The three women exchanged glances. Then Isabella pulled out her phone and made a call. "Marcus, it's Isabella Varelli. I need you to set up a meeting." "No, not with Lucienne, with the council. Yes, I'm aware it's unorthodox. Because I'm invoking my rights as Joseph Varelli's widow, and unless the bylaws have changed in the past 3 years, I still have a voice in family matters. Tomorrow night. And Marcus? Tell them I'm bringing a guest." She hung up and looked at Alara. "Tomorrow night, the council meets to discuss the power vacuum left by Volkov's death, and to determine whether Lucian maintains control of the family operations during his transition to legitimacy. They're going to vote on whether to support him or install someone more traditional." "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything. Because I'm going to bring you to that meeting, and you're going to show them exactly why Lucian Varelli is strong enough to lead in both worlds." Alara's heart hammered. "That's insane." "Probably," Isabella agreed. "But it's also the only way to prove to Lucian, and to yourself, that you belong in his life. Not hidden away, not protected from a distance. Right there beside him, facing down the same threats, making the same choices." "He'll be furious." "Oh, he'll be apoplectic," Angela said with a grin, "which is how you'll know it's working." Alara looked at Jenna, who'd been silent through all of this. Her roommate shrugged. "I think you're all completely out of your minds," Jenna said. "But I also think that if you're going to do this, if you're really going to fight for him, then you should go all in. No halfway measures, no safe houses or new identities. Just you, terrifying and stubborn, showing up where you're not supposed to be and refusing to leave." Sophie nodded seriously. "Like Nala." "Exactly like Nala," Jenna agreed. Alara thought about Lucian's face the last time she'd seen him. The grief and the love and the absolute certainty that he was doing the right thing by walking away. She thought about living the rest of her life wondering what would have happened if she'd fought harder, if she'd refused to accept his sacrifice. She thought about the moment in that warehouse when she'd pushed him aside, when instinct had overridden self-preservation, when love had been stronger than fear. "Okay," she said. "I'm in. What do I need to know?" Isabella's smile was sharp and satisfied. "First, we need to get you a dress. Something that says, 'I survived your worst and I'm still standing.' Second, we need to teach you the power structure. Who's loyal to Lucian? Who's on the fence? Who's actively working against him? Third, I need to learn how to walk into a room full of criminals and not look terrified," Alara finished. "Oh, you can look terrified," Angela said. "You just can't act terrified. There's a difference." Over the next 24 hours, Alara received a crash course in surviving Lucian's world. Isabella taught her names and faces, explained alliances and grudges that went back decades. Angela showed her how to read a room, how to spot threats, how to carry herself with the kind of confidence that made people think twice about underestimating you. Sophie, for her part, insisted that Ilara practice her brave face in the mirror and declared that she looked very fierce, like a T-Rex. Jenna watched it all with growing alarm and grudging respect. "You know this is absolutely crazy, right?" she said while helping Alara into the dress Isabella had procured. Black, elegant, expensive enough to be armor. "Completely," Alara agreed. The dress fit perfectly despite the bandages underneath. Isabella had impeccable taste and apparently accurate measurements. "And you're still going to do it?" "I am." "Because you love him." "Because I love him," Alara confirmed. "And because he's wrong about me needing to be protected, about us being safer apart, about sacrifice being the same as love." Jenna helped zip up the back of the dress, careful around the healing wound. "For what it's worth, I think you're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Haven't decided which yet." "Can I be both?" "Apparently that's your thing now." Jenna stepped back to survey her work. "You look dangerous." "Good." Alara met her own eyes in the mirror. The woman staring back looked nothing like the broke nursing student who'd stumbled into a penthouse party 2 weeks ago. This woman had been shot and survived, had been kidnapped and escaped, had loved and lost and decided to fight anyway. This woman was done being protected. The car arrived at 7. Not the black sedan she'd expected, but a sleek town car with tinted windows and a driver who had the same alert posture as Simone. Isabella sat in the back, dressed in midnight blue, looking every inch the widow of a crime boss. "Ready?" she asked as Alara slid in beside her. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Isabella's smile was proud. "That's the spirit." The drive to the meeting took them deep into Brooklyn, to a restaurant that looked innocuous from the outside but had the kind of discreet security that spoke to its real purpose. Men in dark suits flanked the entrance, their eyes tracking the car as it pulled up. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. The painkillers she'd taken before leaving were already wearing off, and her side throbbed with each breath. But she forced herself to move smoothly as she exited the car, to walk with Isabella's same measured grace despite the pain. The men at the door recognized Isabella and stepped aside without question. Inside, the restaurant was closed to the public, tables pushed to the walls to create space for the gathering in the center. 20 men, maybe more, sat in a rough circle. Their ages ranged from 30s to 80s, their faces hard with the kind of experience that came from surviving in a world where mistakes were fatal. And at the head of the circle, looking like he'd been carved from ice, sat Lucien Yen. He saw her immediately. His entire body went rigid, his eyes widening with shock that quickly morphed into fury. He started to rise, his mouth opening to speak or shout, but Isabella raised a hand. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying across the room with the authority of someone who'd commanded attention in spaces like this for decades. "Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As Joseph Varelli's widow, I invoke my right to address this council on matters of family business." An older man with silver hair and scars on his knuckles nodded. "You have the floor, Isabella." "I'm here to discuss my son's leadership." Isabella's hand settled on Ilara's shoulder, a gesture of both support and presentation. Specifically, whether his choice to pursue legitimacy represents weakness or evolution. Murmurs rippled through the room. Lucien's jaw was clenched so tight, Ilara thought she could hear his teeth crack from across the space. "Many of you believe that going legitimate is tantamount to surrender," Isabella continued, "that it represents abandonment of the old ways, the traditions that built this organization, and you're concerned that my son's personal attachments make him vulnerable to exploitation." She paused, letting the words settle. Ilara could feel eyes on her, assessing, calculating, judging. "But I would argue the opposite," Isabella said. "Lucien's transition to legitimacy isn't weakness, it's strategic evolution, and his relationship with Ilara Quinn isn't a liability. It's proof that he has something worth protecting, something worth building toward." "With all due respect, Isabella," another man said, his accent thick with Brooklyn roots, "that girl got kidnapped by Volkov and nearly got your son killed. How is that strength?" "She got kidnapped because she represents something Volkov couldn't understand," Isabella shot back. "The possibility of a different future. And when Volkov tried to use her as leverage, what happened?" Silence. "My son went to war," Isabella continued, not recklessly, not emotionally, but with precision and planning and the kind of calculated violence that reminded everyone in this city exactly who he is. And when that battle culminated in a warehouse in Red Hook, this young woman, she squeezed Ilara's shoulder, pushed him out of the way of a bullet and took it herself. "Tell me, gentlemen, how many of your associates would sacrifice themselves for you?" More murmurs. Eyes that had been dismissive were now curious, reassessing. Lucien stood. "Mother, stop. This isn't—" "Sit down, Lucien." Isabella's voice cracked like a whip. "You've had your say. You've made your choices. Now it's time to let others make theirs." Lucien remained standing, his eyes locked on Ilara. She could see the war in his face, anger and fear and desperate love all fighting for dominance. She wanted to go to him, to explain, to make him understand. But Isabella's grip on her shoulder was firm, keeping her in place. "I didn't bring Ilara here to be examined like a specimen," Isabella said. "I brought her here to demonstrate that my son's strength doesn't come from isolation or emotional detachment. It comes from having something worth fighting for, someone worth building a better world for." "Pretty speech," the silver-haired man said. "But Volkov's dead and his organization is fractured. There are at least 3 different groups trying to claim his territory. We need strong leadership right now, not romantic ideals." "Then you have it," a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Simone stood there, flanked by two other operatives Alara didn't recognize. Behind them, a line of men in dark suits filed in. Lucien's people, she realized. His soldiers, his loyalists, the infrastructure he'd been building for years. While this council has been debating, Simone continued, Mr. Varelli has been acting. In the past 72 hours, he's secured alliances with two of the three groups vying for Volkov's territory. The third has agreed to a non-aggression pact. He's consolidated his legitimate holdings, shored up his political connections, and positioned himself to control the transition without a single shot fired. She pulled out a tablet, began displaying documents on a screen that lowered from the ceiling. Financial statements, contracts, agreements signed and sealed. This is what strength looks like in the modern age, Simone said. Not just muscle and violence, but strategy and infrastructure. Mr. Varelli hasn't abandoned the old ways. He's mastered them and then transcended them. And he did it while grieving, while terrified for the woman he loves, while being second-guessed by this council. The room had gone quiet. Even the skeptics looked impressed, despite themselves. Lucien was staring at the screen, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at Simone. You were supposed to be protecting Alara. I was. I am. Simone met his eyes without flinching. But I'm also smart enough to recognize when someone doesn't need protecting the way you think they do. Miss Quinn doesn't need a bodyguard to hide behind, sir. She needs a partner who trusts her to stand beside him. Lucien's gaze shifted to Alara. She felt the weight of it, the intensity, the barely controlled emotion. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice rough. Neither should you, Alara shot back. You should be at my apartment, arguing with me in person, instead of making decisions for me through intermediaries. I'm trying to keep you safe. By breaking both our hearts? Great plan. A ripple of surprise went through the council. Apparently people didn't usually talk to Lucien Varelli like that. Good. Alara was done caring about protocol. She stepped forward, ignoring Isabella's hand falling away, ignoring the pain in her side, ignoring everything except the man in front of her. You told me that kissing you meant I was part of your world, she said, and her voice didn't shake even though her legs felt like water. You said I was yours. You don't get to take that back because things got hard. You were shot. I was shot protecting you. My choice, my decision. And you've spent 3 days acting like that was something done to me instead of something I chose. She was close enough now to see the stubble on his jaw, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way his hands were clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. I'm not going to apologize for loving you enough to take a bullet, and I'm not going to let you punish us both for it. Alara, his voice cracked on her name. I know you're scared, she continued, softer now. I know you've lost people. I know you think keeping me at a distance will keep me safe. But Lucien, I'm already in this. Volkov's dead, but your world still exists. And whether I'm in Connecticut hiding or here beside you, that doesn't change. The only difference is whether I'm facing it alone or with you. The room had faded away. There was only him, only them, only this moment balanced on a knife's edge. I can't lose you, Lucien said, and there was so much pain in those 4 words that Alara's eyes stung. Then stop pushing me away. He moved, fast, decisive, closing the distance between them and cupping her face in his hands. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, his eyes searching hers like he was looking for permission or forgiveness or both. If I let you stay, he started. Not if? When? She covered his hands with hers. When you let me stay, we do this together. No more making decisions for me. No more noble sacrifices. Just us, figuring it out as we go. That's terrifying. I know. She smiled despite the tears streaming down her face. But I'm braver when I'm with you. And I think you're braver when you're with me, too. Someone in the council cleared their throat pointedly. Lucien glanced around as if suddenly remembering they had an audience. His expression shifted from vulnerable to guarded so fast it was like watching a mask slam into place. But he didn't let go of Alara. Gentlemen, he said, his voice steady and commanding. You wanted to know if I'm strong enough to lead this family through transition, if my personal life makes me vulnerable. He pulled Alara closer, his arms settling around her waist with a possessiveness that made her breath catch. Here's your answer. I'm stronger with her than I've ever been alone. And if any of you think you can use her to control me, you're welcome to try. But know that the last man who made that mistake is currently occupying a refrigerated drawer at the city morgue. The threat hung in the air, clear and sharp. No one spoke. I'm going legitimate, Lucian continued, with or without this council's support, but I'd prefer to do it with your cooperation because I'm not interested in unnecessary bloodshed. So you have a choice. Support the evolution, profit from the new opportunities it creates, and help me build something that doesn't require our children to choose between power and prison. Or fight me and discover exactly how much of my father's son I can be when motivated. The silver-haired man studied Lucian for a long moment, then looked at Alara. You understand what you're signing up for, girl? This life, it doesn't have exits. Once you're in, you're in. I understand, Alara said, and she did. Finally, completely, she understood. He nodded slowly. Then I vote to support Lucien's transition. With conditions. Name them, Lucien said. Atsen. You maintain the family's core interests. You don't leave anyone vulnerable during the shift. And you prove that going legitimate doesn't mean going soft. Agreed. Lucien's grip on Alara tightened slightly. Anyone else? One by one, the council members voiced their support. Some grudging, some enthusiastic, all calculated. By the time the votes were counted, Lucien had his mandate. Isabella was smiling. Angela, who'd slipped in during the vote, looked proud. Even Simone seemed satisfied. But Lucien's expression was unreadable as the meeting dissolved, as council members began filing out, as the room slowly emptied. He kept his arm around Alara the entire time, like he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. When they were finally alone, just them, Isabella, Angela, and Simone, he turned to face her fully. You could have died, he said. Coming here, pushing this, forcing a confrontation. If the council had voted against me, if someone had decided you were a threat, but they didn't. But they could have. His hands framed her face again, gentler this time. You're going to give me a heart attack. Good, then we'll be even. He laughed, broken and exhausted and somehow hopeful. You're impossible. You love me anyway. I do. The words were a surrender and a promise. God help me. I do. Then he was kissing her, and it tasted like tears and relief, and the beginning of something that might actually last. Alara kissed him back, ignoring the pain in her side, ignoring the audience, ignoring everything except the fact that she'd fought and won, and he was here, solid and real and hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucian rested his forehead against hers. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for walking away, for trying to make your choices for you, for being a dramatic idiot, as I believe Jenna called me. She's not wrong, Alara said, but I forgive you anyway. Just like that? No, you're going to have to earn it. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Starting with never trying to send me away again. Deal. He kissed her again, softer this time, though I reserve the right to worry about you excessively. I can live with that. Isabella approached, her expression warm. I'm proud of you both. This was brave and stupid and absolutely necessary. Learn from the best, Alara said. Yes, you did. Isabella squeezed her hand. Welcome to the family, dear. Officially, this time. Angela joined them, Sophie still attached to her hand. The little girl looked at Lucian seriously. You're being like Simba now, she announced, fighting for your pride. I guess I am, Lucian agreed, scooping her up with the ease of long practice. Did you plan all this? Nope. That was Nona and Aunt Angela and Alara. I just provided moral support and dinosaur facts. The dinosaur facts were crucial, Alara said gravely. Sophie beamed. They left the restaurant together, a strange, fractured family bound by love and violence and the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. Outside, the Brooklyn night was cold and clear, stars somehow visible despite the city's light pollution. Lucian kept Alara close as they walked to the car. She could feel the tension in him, the fear not quite buried, the knowledge that this wasn't over. The council's vote had bought them time and support, but the threats remained. Other families, other players, the constant pressure of living in both worlds at once. But they'd face it together. What happens now? She asked as they settled into the back of the town car. Lucien was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing patterns on the back of her hand. Now we build something real. something that lasts. I finish transitioning the business. You finish nursing school. We figure out how to merge our worlds without destroying each other in the process. That sounds hard. It will be. He turned to look at her, and his eyes were clear and certain. But I'm done pretending I can do this alone. Done thinking that strength means isolation. If you're willing to fight beside me, I am, Alara said, for however long it takes. Then we fight. He kissed her temple, gentle and reverent. Together. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying them into the uncertain future. Behind them, the restaurant faded into the night. Ahead, the city sprawled in all its chaotic, dangerous, beautiful complexity. And somewhere in that city, in the shadows between legitimate business and criminal empire, enemies were already plotting their next move. But for the first time since that night in the penthouse, Alara wasn't afraid. She was ready. The threat came 3 weeks later on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. Alara was at clinical rotation, checking vitals on a post-op patient when her phone buzzed with a text from Lucien. She almost ignored it. He knew she couldn't check messages during rounds. But something made her glance at the screen. Get to safety. Now. Simone is 2 minutes out. Her blood turned to ice. She excused herself from the patient's room, her hands already shaking as she typed back. What's happening? The response was immediate. Volkov's brother. Didn't know he existed until today. He's coming for you. Alara's stomach dropped. She thought of Volkov in that warehouse, the way Lucien had put 3 bullets in him. Thought about the smug certainty that it was over, that they'd won. But violence had a way of echoing, of rippling outward long after the initial impact. She was halfway to the exit when Simone appeared, moving fast, her face grim. We need to go, the bodyguard said. Now. What about the other patients? I can't just... Miss Quinn, I need you to trust me. We need to leave this building immediately. Simone's hand settled on her arm, firm but not painful. Please. The elevator ride down felt endless. Simone positioned herself between Alara and the doors, one hand inside her jacket where her weapon was holstered. When the doors opened to the lobby, she scanned the space with the precision of someone expecting an ambush. The lobby was crowded. Visitors, patients in wheelchairs, medical staff rushing between departments. Normal hospital chaos. But Simone's tension didn't ease. They made it to the exit. The black sedan was idling at the curb, driver already behind the wheel. Simone opened the rear door, practically pushing Alara inside. The explosion came as Simone was sliding in beside her, not the car. Somewhere behind them. The hospital entrance erupted in fire and smoke and screaming. The force of it rocked their sedan, shattering the rear window. Alara felt glass rain down on her, felt the heat even through the layers of metal and distance. Drive, Simone shouted. Go, go, go. The sedan peeled away from the curb, tires screaming. Through the shattered rear window, Alara could see the hospital entrance, a smoking crater where the automatic doors had been. People were running, screaming. Someone was on fire. Oh my God, Alara whispered. Patricia, the patients, all those people. I know. Simone was on her phone, barking orders. We need a secure location. Varelli Estate. Full lockdown protocol. Alara couldn't look away from the receding hospital. The place where she'd worked, where she'd learned to save lives, where just minutes ago she'd been checking Mrs. Chen's blood pressure. Now it was chaos and smoke and bodies. This is my fault, she said numbly. No. Simone's voice was sharp. This is the fault of whoever planted that bomb. Not you. But Alara knew better. The bomb had been meant for her. Would have killed her if Simone had been 30 seconds slower. Instead, it had killed. How many? 10 people? 20? All because someone wanted revenge for Adrian Volkov's death. The sedan raced through Manhattan traffic, running red lights, weaving between cars. Alara's phone buzzed continuously, Lucien calling, texting, desperate. She answered with shaking hands. Are you hurt? His voice was ragged. No, Simone got me out. But, Lucien, the hospital. I know. I'm watching the news. Emergency services are responding. A pause filled with things he wasn't saying. I'm so sorry. I should have known. Should have been more careful. You didn't know he had a brother? I should have. The self-recrimination in his voice was brutal. I should have checked, should have made sure. Instead, I got complacent, thought killing Volkov was enough. And now, His voice broke. Alara heard someone talking in the background, urgent and low. I have to go, Lucian said. Simone's taking you to the estate. Stay there. Don't leave for any reason. I'll come as soon as I can. Lucien, I love you. Stay safe. He hung up. The Varelli estate was in Westchester, tucked behind gates and walls and enough security to protect a head of state. Alara had never been here. Lucien had always come to her, meeting on her territory, keeping this part of his life separate. But now the gates swung open for their sedan, and she got her first look at the house where he'd grown up. It was massive, stone and glass and old money, the kind of place that had seen generations of Varellis make their fortunes and their mistakes. Gardens sprawled in all directions despite the late autumn chill. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear water, a fountain or a pond. Isabella met them at the door, her face pale. Thank God you're safe. The hospital, Alara started. 14 dead, 37 injured. Isabella's voice was hollow. Including 2 nurses from your unit. Alara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the marble entryway floor, her vision tunneling. Patricia. Had Patricia been one of them? Mrs. Chen? The post-op patient she'd been checking on? Isabella knelt beside her, hands gentle on her shoulders. Breathe, dear, just breathe. This is my fault. No. This is the fault of monsters who use innocent people as weapons. Isabella's voice hardened. And Lucien is going to make sure they pay for it. Angela appeared with Sophie, who immediately ran to Alara and threw her small arms around her neck. The girl didn't say anything, just held on tight, and somehow that made it worse. Even a 7-year-old understood that the world was breaking apart. They moved to a sitting room, all antique furniture and oil paintings, and the weight of history. Simone stationed herself by the window, ever watchful. Angela made tea that no one drank. Isabella made phone calls in low, urgent tones, and Alara sat on a velvet couch with Sophie curled against her side and watched the news coverage of the hospital bombing on a tablet someone had handed her. The death toll climbed to 16, then 18. The injured count kept rising. She recognized faces in the crowd shots, doctors she'd worked with, patients she'd treated. The hospital entrance was completely destroyed. The ER was in chaos, overwhelmed with casualties from its own building. Her phone buzzed. Jenna. Are you okay? I just saw the news. Please tell me you weren't there. Alara typed back with numb fingers. I was there. I got out. I'm safe. Oh my God. Where are you? Lucian's family estate, Westchester. I'm coming to you. No, it's not safe. Stay away from me, Jenna. Everyone around me gets hurt. A long pause. Then, fuck that. I'm coming. Send me the address. Alara wanted to argue, wanted to protect her roommate from this nightmare, but she was so tired of arguing, so tired of pushing people away for their own good. She sent the address. The sun set. Darkness crept across the estate's grounds. Security lights flickered on, turning the gardens into something out of a Gothic novel. Simone reported that the perimeter was secure, that additional operatives had arrived, that no one was getting through without authorization. Lucien arrived just after 8, moving through the house like a storm barely contained. He found Alara in the sitting room, still on the couch, still watching the news. Sophie had fallen asleep against her shoulder. He took in the scene, his niece, his mother, Angela, the bodyguards, and Alara at the center of it all looking hollowed out and brittle. His expression cracked. I'm going to kill him, he said quietly. Dmitry Volkov. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to kill him slowly. That won't bring them back, Alara said. The people who died today, revenge won't bring them back. No, but it will make sure he can't kill anyone else. Isabella stood. Sophie needs to be in bed. Angela, help me. Angela nodded, gently extracting Sophie from Alara's side. The little girl mumbled in her sleep but didn't wake. They left, taking most of the security with them, leaving just Simone by the door. Lucian sat beside Alara, and the couch dipped under his weight. He didn't touch her, didn't reach for her hand, just sat there, close enough to feel his heat, but distant in every way that mattered. I can't do this anymore, Alara said. His head snapped toward her. What? I can't. Her voice broke. She forced it steady. 18 people died today because someone wanted to hurt you through me. 18 people who were just doing their jobs, just living their lives. And they're dead because I fell in love with you. Ilara, no. Listen. She finally looked at him, and the pain in his face was almost unbearable. You were right. Back in the hospital when you said I should go to the safe house. You were right, and I was too stubborn to see it. I thought I could be brave enough, strong enough. I thought love was enough. But it's not. It's never enough when the cost is other people's lives. You can't leave. The words came out desperate, raw. Not now, not after everything. I have to, because the alternative is watching more people die. And I can't carry that, Lucien. I'm not strong enough. He reached for her then, his hands framing her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're the strongest person I know. You took a bullet for me. You faced down a council of criminals. You've survived things that would have broken most people. And how many more will die before this is over? Tears streamed down her face, hot and bitter. How many more funerals will we attend? How many more families will we destroy? I don't know. The honesty cut deep. But I know that if you leave, Dmitry Volkov wins. He wants us broken. He wants you running. He wants to prove that love is weakness and isolation is strength. If you go, you're giving him exactly what he wants. Maybe he's right. The words tasted like ash. Maybe love is weakness. Maybe we're both too damaged to be together without collateral damage. Lucian's hands dropped. He looked at her like she'd put a knife in his chest. You don't mean that? I don't know what I mean anymore. Ilara stood, needing distance. All I know is that people keep getting hurt, and I can't be the reason for that anymore. She walked out of the sitting room, through hallways lined with portraits of dead Varelis, and found herself in a library that smelled like leather and old paper. She collapsed into a chair by the window and let herself break apart. The crying came in waves, violent and consuming. She cried for the nurses who'd died, for the patients caught in the blast, for Patricia who might be dead, and Mrs. Chen who might be dead, and every single person whose only crime was being in the wrong place when someone wanted revenge. She cried for Lucien, who she loved with a desperation that scared her. And she cried for herself, for the nursing student who just wanted to help people and had somehow ended up at the center of a war. A hand settled on her shoulder. She looked up, expecting Isabella or Angela. But it was Jenna, her eyes red-rimmed, her face set with determination. How did you... Talked my way past security. Told them I was your sister. Jenna pulled up another chair. You look like hell. 18 people died today because of me. 18 people died because a psychopath planted a bomb. That's not on you. It might as well be. If Lucien and I... Stop. Jenna's voice was firm. You're spiraling. I get it, but you're not responsible for the actions of a terrorist. You're just not. Tell that to their families. Okay. Let's say you're right. Let's say this is somehow your fault. Jenna leaned forward. What's your plan? Leave Lucien, hide somewhere, live the rest of your life wondering if Dmitry Volkov is still out there, if he's moved on to other targets, if your running accomplished anything except breaking your own heart? At least I wouldn't be the direct cause of more deaths. You really believe that? That walking away makes you less culpable? Jenna shook her head. Ilara, you're the most committed person I know. You don't do anything halfway. You became a nurse because you wanted to save lives. You fell for Lucien because he needed someone to believe he could be better. And now you want to run because the consequences got too real. That's not the person I know. Maybe that person died today. Bullshit. Jenna grabbed her hands, held them tight. That person is right here, hurt and scared and traumatized, but still here, still fighting. You just have to decide what you're fighting for. Before Ilara could respond, Simone appeared in the doorway. Her face was grim. We have a problem. Ilara's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Dmitry Volkov just released a statement. He's claiming responsibility for the bombing, and he's issued a challenge, Mr. Varelli, in person, at a location of Volkov's choosing, tonight, or he bombs another hospital tomorrow. The room spun. Ilara stood, her legs shaky. He can't. Lucien can't go. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. Lucien's voice came from behind Simone. He stepped into the library. his expression carved from ice. But I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not when the alternative is more innocent people dying. He moved closer, and she could see the resignation in his eyes, the acceptance. He's picked a warehouse in Red Hook, public enough that he can't just execute me without witnesses, private enough for a confrontation. He wants this to be theater, a public demonstration that he's avenged his brother. Then let the police handle it, the FBI, someone. By the time they mobilize, he'll have triggered another bomb. You know that. Lucian's voice was gentle but unyielding. This is the only way to end it. The only way to end it is you dying, Alara's voice rose. You're walking into an execution, Lucian. He's not going to let you walk out. Probably not. The calm acceptance in his voice was worse than fear. But if it stops him from killing more people, if it protects you and my family, then it's worth it. No, absolutely not. Alara was in front of him now, gripping his shirt. You don't get to martyr yourself. You don't get to, after everything we've been through, everything we've fought for, you don't get to just give up. I'm not giving up. I'm making a choice. His hands covered hers. The same choice you made in that warehouse when you pushed me out of the way of a bullet. Sometimes love means sacrifice. And sometimes sacrifice is just suicide with better PR. Alara's voice cracked. Please don't do this. He pulled her close, his arms tight around her. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and sure, and the thought that it might stop tonight made her want to scream. I love you, he said into her hair, more than I thought I could love anyone. And I need you to know that every moment with you has been worth it. Worth the danger, worth the fear, worth all of it. Stop talking like you're already dead. I'm talking like a man who wants to make sure the woman he loves knows exactly how he feels. He pulled back enough to look at her. If I don't come back, you're coming back. If I don't come back, I need you to live. Really live. Finish school. Become the nurse you were meant to be. Save lives. Be happy. Don't let my death define you. Stop it. She was crying again, violent sobs that shook her entire body. Just stop. I can't lose you. Not now. Not like this. I know. He kissed her, and it tasted like goodbye and forever and every beautiful, terrible thing they'd shared. But you might have to. He released her, stepping back. Simone was waiting by the door along with 3 other operatives Alara hadn't noticed arrive. They were armed, armored, ready for war. I'm coming with you, Alara said. Absolutely not. You don't get to make that choice for me. Not anymore. She wiped her face, forced steel into her voice. If you're walking into a trap, then I'm walking into it with you. That's non-negotiable. Alara, you said we do this together. You promised. So either we both go or neither of us does. Lucien looked at Simone, who shrugged. She's right, sir. You did promise. He closed his eyes briefly, and Alara could see the war playing out behind them. Keeping her safe versus keeping his word. Protection versus partnership. Fine, he said finally, but you stay behind me at all times. You do exactly what Simone tells you, and if things go sideways, you run. Promise me. I promise. A lie, but a necessary one. They prepared in silence. Simone produced a vest for Alara, lightweight Kevlar that hid under a jacket, showed her how to move, how to stay low, how to use cover. It was a crash course in surviving a firefight, delivered in 10 minutes by a woman who'd clearly done this before. Isabella appeared as they were heading out. She looked at her son with eyes full of fear and love and history. Don't do anything stupid, she said. Too late for that. Lucien embraced her. If this goes bad, it won't. But if it does, take care of Alara. She's family now. Isabella's eyes filled. I will. But you're coming back, do you hear me? You don't get to leave me without grandchildren. A ghost of a smile crossed Lucien's face. I'll do my best. They left in 3 vehicles, tactical, armored, the kind of thing you didn't drive unless you expected to be shot at. Alara rode with Lucien and Simone, the silence heavy. Through the tinted windows, she watched Westchester give way to the Bronx, then Manhattan, then Brooklyn. The city rushed past, oblivious to the small war about to unfold in its shadows. Red Hook at night was industrial and empty, the kind of neighborhood that cleared out after dark. The warehouse Dmitri had chosen was massive, rusted, sitting on the edge of the water. Lights blazed inside, visible through broken windows. The vehicles stopped a block away. Lucien's people deployed with military precision, some taking up positions on rooftops, others securing the perimeter. Simone handed Alara an earpiece. "Stay on comms," she said. "If I tell you to run, you run. No hesitation." Alara nodded, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Lucien checked his weapon, a sleek black handgun that looked almost gentle in his hands, and then met her eyes. "Last chance to stay in the car," he said. "Not happening." "Stubborn. You love it." "I do." He kissed her once, quick and fierce. "Let's end this." They approached the warehouse on foot. Lucien in front, Simone and two operatives flanking, Alara in the middle where they could protect her. Every footstep echoed. Every shadow looked like a threat. The warehouse door stood open, light spilling out. Lucien paused at the threshold, then stepped inside. The space was vast and empty except for a single figure standing in the center under a spotlight. Dmitri Volkov looked nothing like his brother, shorter, stockier, with a face that had seen too many fights and a smile that suggested he'd won most of them. "Lucien Varelli," he said, his accent thicker than Adrian's had been. "So nice of you to come, and you brought your pet nurse. How thoughtful." "Let's skip the posturing, Lucien." "You wanted me. Here I am. Let everyone else go." "But that's not how this works." Dmitri gestured, and figures emerged from the shadows. At least a dozen armed men surrounding them. "You killed my brother. You think I'm just going to let you walk away? Your brother tried to kidnap an innocent woman. He got what he deserved. He was teaching you a lesson about power, about consequences." Dmitri's smile widened. "But you didn't learn. You kept pushing, kept trying to go legitimate, kept pretending you could escape what you are. So now I teach the lesson Adrian couldn't finish." He pulled out a detonator, small, black, ominous. "There are bombs in 3 hospitals right now," Dmitri said. "Preset to go off at midnight. That gives you—" He checked his watch. 43 minutes to make a choice. You can try to stop me, try to fight your way out. But if I don't send the abort code by 11:59, those bombs detonate. Hundreds dead. Maybe thousands. Alara's blood turned to ice. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Dmitri's eyes were cold, empty. "After today, do you really want to test that theory?" Lucien's hand tightened on his weapon. "What do you want?" What Adrian wanted, submission. You on your knees, acknowledging that this legitimacy fantasy is over, that you'll return to the old ways, pay reparations to my family, and accept your place in the hierarchy. Dmitri's voice hardened. "Or I push this button and watch the city burn." The warehouse was silent except for breathing and the distant sound of water lapping against the dock. Alara could see Lucien calculating, could see the war in his eyes. Submit and lose everything he'd worked for, or fight and risk mass casualties. "There's a third option," Simone said quietly in Alara's ear. "Get ready to move." Before Alara could ask what she meant, the lights went out. Chaos erupted. Gunfire, shouts, the sound of bodies hitting concrete. Simone grabbed Alara and dragged her behind a stack of crates. In the darkness, lit only by muzzle flashes, Alara caught glimpses. Lucien moving with lethal precision, taking down men twice his size. His operatives engaging Dmitri's people. Blood on the floor, spreading in the intermittent light. "Stay down," Simone hissed, her own weapon out, firing at shadows. Alara pressed herself against the crates, her hands over her ears, trying not to scream. This was insanity. This was war. This was... A body fell beside her. One of Dmitri's men, eyes open and unseen. Alara scrambled away, her breath coming in panicked gasps. Then she saw Dmitri. He was moving toward the exit, the detonator still clutched in his hand. If he escaped, if he triggered those bombs... Alara didn't think. She lunged. It wasn't graceful. She was a nursing student, not a soldier. But desperation gave her speed, and Dmitri didn't see her coming until she crashed into him, knocking him sideways. The detonator flew from his hand, skittering across the concrete. Dmitri recovered fast, his fist catching her in the ribs where the bullet wound had barely healed. Pain exploded through her side, white-hot and devastating. She went down hard, gasping. Stupid girl, Dmitri snarled, reaching for the detonator. A gunshot. Dmitri jerked backward, red blooming on his shoulder. Lucian stood 10 feet away, his weapon trained, his face a mask of controlled fury. Touch her again, and the next one goes through your skull, he said. Dmitri laughed, a wet, painful sound. Do it. Kill me. See what happens. He glanced at his watch. 38 minutes. Even if you kill me, you'll never find all 3 bombs in time. Then tell me where they are. No. Lucian's finger tightened on the trigger. For a moment, Ilara thought he'd do it, thought he'd shoot Dmitri and damn the consequences. But then he lowered the weapon slightly. Simone, call the FBI. Tell them we have a credible bomb threat. He kept his eyes on Dmitri. They have bomb squads, K-9 units. If there's even a chance of finding those devices, they won't make it in time, Dmitri said. But sure, watch them try. Watch them fail. Watch hundreds of people die because you couldn't just submit. Ilara pulled herself upright, her side screaming in protest. She looked at the detonator, just feet away, looked at Dmitri, bleeding and smiling, looked at Lucien, torn between vengeance and virtue. There's another way, she said. Both men looked at her. You want submission? She said to Dmitri. You want Lucien to acknowledge defeat? Fine, he does it. Right now. On camera. A complete surrender. Ilara, no, Lucien started. But, she continued, speaking over him, in exchange, you give us the locations. You let us evacuate those hospitals. You let innocent people live. Dmitri studied her, blood soaking through his shirt. And why would I do that? What's to stop him from going back on his word the moment those bombs are disarmed? Because I'll stay with you. The words came out steady despite the terror. As collateral. You keep me until you're satisfied Lucien has honored his agreement. If he reneges, you kill me. Slowly. On camera. Whatever you want. No. Lucien's voice was flat, final. Absolutely not. It's the only way to save those people, Ilara said, and you know it. I'm not trading your life for anyone's. You don't get to make that choice. She met his eyes, willing him to understand. These people, the patients, the nurses, the doctors, they're innocent. They don't deserve to die because of your pride or his revenge. So yes, you're going to submit, and yes, I'm going to stay with him. Because that's what love looks like. Sacrifice. She turned back to Dmitri. Do we have a deal? He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he laughed, a genuine sound despite the pain. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the stupidest. Both, Ilara said. Do we have a deal? Dmitri glanced at his watch. 36 minutes, clock's ticking. Deal or no deal? Fine, he nodded. But Lucien has to do more than just say words. He has to dismantle his legitimate operations, return to the old ways, publicly, completely, no half measures. Done, Lucien said before Ilara could respond. His voice was hollow. Just give me the locations. Dmitri smiled. Mount Sinai West, Lenox Hill, NYU Langone. The bombs are in the main electrical systems. You'll need the codes to disarm them. Codes? Simone demanded. Which I'll provide once Lucien makes his statement. Dmitri's eyes glittered with malice. And once the girl is secured as my guest. The next 20 minutes were a nightmare of coordination. Lucien's people scrambled to contact the FBI to get bomb squads deployed, to evacuate 3 massive hospitals without causing mass panic. Simone argued with Dmitri about the specifics of Ilara's stay, duration, conditions, safety guarantees. And Lucien stood frozen, watching it all unfold, looking like a man witnessing his own execution. Finally, with 30 minutes remaining, he pulled out his phone and set up a live video. His face appeared on screen, haggard, defeated, everything he'd tried not to be. My name is Lucien Varelli, he said, his voice flat. 3 years ago, I began a transition toward legitimacy. I believed I could escape the world my father built, could create something better. I was wrong. He paused, swallowing hard. Effective immediately, I'm ending all legitimate business ventures. I'm returning to traditional family operations. I'm acknowledging Dmitri Volkov's authority and paying reparations for the death of his brother Adrian. I'm submitting to the old ways. Each word looked like it cost him something vital. Alara watched, her heart breaking as he dismantled everything he'd worked for. This statement is legally binding, he continued. Witnessed and recorded. I'm done fighting. I'm done trying to be something I'm not. He looked directly into the camera, and Alara knew he was looking at her. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for everything. The video ended. Silence filled the warehouse. Then Dmitri, still bleeding but triumphant, rattled off 3 long sequences of numbers, disarming codes. Simone relayed them immediately to the FBI. The wait was agonizing. 15 minutes. 10. 5. At midnight minus 2 minutes, Simone's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression shifting from tense to relieved. They got them, she said, but all 3 devices disarmed. No casualties. The breath Alara had been holding rushed out. Relief made her dizzy, but Dmitri was already moving, grabbing her arm with his good hand. A deal's a deal. She comes with me. Lucien raised his weapon. Like hell she does. You gave your word. Dmitri's grip tightened. On camera, legally binding, or was that just another lie? I gave my word I'd submit. I never agreed to let you take her. It was implied. Implied isn't agreed. Lucien's voice dropped to something dangerous. And here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to let her go. You're going to walk out of here and disappear. And in exchange, I won't hunt you down and kill you the way I killed your brother. You think you can threaten me? Dmitri yanked Alara closer, his forearm across her throat. I have... The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Dmitri's head snapped back, a red hole appearing in his forehead. His grip on Alara went slack. He fell, dead before he hit the ground. Alara stumbled forward, caught by Simone. Behind Dmitri's body stood a figure emerging from the shadows. One of Lucien's operatives, rifle still raised. Clean shot, sir, the operative said calmly. Lucien lowered his weapon, his expression unreadable. Get her out of here. But Alara pulled away from Simone, her eyes on the body at her feet. Dmitri Volkov, who'd planted bombs in hospitals, who'd killed 18 people, who'd tried to break Lucien and had almost succeeded. Dead now, his blood pooling on concrete, his revenge incomplete. You killed him, she said. Yes. After promising him safe passage. I promised nothing. I made a threat. He chose not to believe it. Lucien's voice was ice. And I'm not apologizing for saving your life. I didn't ask you to apologize. Alara looked up at him. But you need to understand something. You just murdered a man in front of witnesses. You're on camera confessing to returning to criminal operations. You've undone 3 years of work in 30 minutes. I know. And you did it for me. I'd do it again. He moved closer, his hands framing her face. I'd burn this entire city down if it meant keeping you safe. I'd destroy everything I've built. I'd become my father's son all over again. Don't you understand that by now? I do. Her voice cracked. And that's what terrifies me. Because you were supposed to be better. You were supposed to prove that change was possible. I did prove it for 3 years. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. But when it came down to a choice between legitimacy and you, there was no contest. There was never going to be a contest. Alara closed her eyes, tears slipping down her face. So what now? You go back to being a crime boss? You give up everything you worked for? No. Simone's voice cut through. He doesn't have to. They both looked at her. The bodyguard was holding up a phone, a slight smile on her face. The FBI just arrested 12 members of Dmitri's network, she said, including his second-in-command, who's already rolling over for a plea deal. He's confessing to planning the hospital bombings, to extorting Mr. Varelli under threat of terrorism, to at least 6 other crimes including weapons trafficking and murder for hire. So? Lucien asked. So the video you made, it's evidence of a coerced statement made under duress to prevent mass casualties. The DA's office is already preparing to use it against Dmitri's people. Simone's smile widened. Your confession was made to save lives, sir. Under these circumstances, it's not legally binding. It's heroism. The words hung in the air. Lucien stared at Simone like she'd started speaking another language. Are you saying... I'm saying the FBI is going to spin this as a successful collaboration between a legitimate businessman and law enforcement to stop a terrorist threat. They're going to hold you up as an example of how former crime families can transition productively into legal society. Simone's expression was almost smug. You're going to be a hero, sir. And your legitimate operations not only survive, they're going to thrive on the publicity. Alara started laughing. It came out slightly hysterical, tinged with exhaustion and relief and the absurdity of it all. Lucian looked at her like she'd lost her mind. We almost died, she managed between laughs. Multiple times, and it's going to end with you being a hero? Apparently, he said, and then he was laughing too, rough and disbelieving and free in a way she'd never heard from him. They stood in a warehouse full of bodies and blood and the remnants of violence, laughing like lunatics, while Simone coordinated with the FBI and cleanup crews began securing the scene. Finally, Lucien pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Let's go home. Which home? Whichever one you want. His arms tightened. As long as you're there, I don't care where it is. Well, 6 months later. The clinic in the Bronx was small but well equipped, funded by a combination of grants and private donations. The sign above the door read Quinn Community Health Center, and Alara still wasn't quite used to seeing her name in brass letters. She finished checking the vitals on her last patient of the day, a woman with diabetes who was finally getting her blood sugar under control, and made notes in the chart. You're doing great, Mrs. Rodriguez, Alara said. Keep up with the medication schedule and I'll see you in 2 weeks. You saved my life, Mrs. Rodriguez said, not for the first time. When no other clinic would see me, when I had no insurance, you were here. That's what we're here for, Alara said gently. After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Alara locked up the clinic and headed to the small office in the back. The space was cramped but functional. A desk piled with paperwork, a bulletin board covered in thank you cards from patients, a window overlooking a garden that was just starting to bloom with spring flowers. Lucien was waiting by the window, hands in his pockets, looking at the garden. He'd been here when she arrived this morning, and apparently he'd been here all day, working from the small couch in the corner while she saw patients. How many today? He asked without turning. 32. Alara collapsed into her desk chair. We need more staff. I can't keep up with the demand. So hire more staff. I gave you a budget. Your money is our money. We've been through this. He finally turned to face her. The foundation is legitimate. The funding is clean. Use it to help people. That's what it's for. They'd had this argument a dozen times over the past 6 months. Lucien had established the Varelli Foundation with a massive endowment focused on healthcare access and education. Alara had tried to refuse, had insisted she didn't want to be dependent on his money, didn't want the clinic tainted by association with his past. But eventually, she'd realized that was her pride talking, not her principles. The clinic helped people who desperately needed it. And if Lucien's money, earned legally now, scrubbed clean by 3 years of transition, could fund that work, then she'd be a fool to refuse. Fine, she said. I'll hire another nurse practitioner and a medical assistant, maybe a part-time pharmacist. Good. He moved closer, perching on the edge of her desk. How are you feeling? Tired? My feet hurt. Mrs. Chen's grandson tried to eat a crayon and I had to convince him it wasn't food. She smiled despite the exhaustion. It was a good day. Lucien reached out, his fingers threading through her hair. You look happy. I am happy. And it was true. After everything, the violence, the trauma, the losses, she'd found her way to something that felt right. The clinic served a neighborhood that desperately needed it. She got to use her training to help people instead of just emptying bedpans during clinical rotations. She was making a difference, and she got to come home every night to a man who loved her enough to have almost destroyed himself for her. How was your day? She asked. Boring. Conference calls about real estate ventures. A meeting with the mayor about urban development projects. Lunch with a pharmaceutical executive who wants to partner on affordable medication distribution. He made a face. Legitimacy is tedious, but safe. But safe, he agreed. No one's tried to kill me in 6 months. That's got to be some kind of record. Alara laughed. They'd both been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some new threat to emerge from Lucien's past. But the city had settled into a new equilibrium after Dimitri's death. The council supported Lucien's leadership. His transition to legitimacy was nearly complete, and the enemies who remained had apparently decided he wasn't worth the trouble. Come on, Lucien said, standing and pulling her up with him. Dinner's waiting. You cooked? Isabella cooked. I'm just delivering. He grabbed a bag from the couch. The Italian restaurant. She could smell the garlic from here. She also sent cannoli for dessert and says you need to call her more often. I called her yesterday. She claims it's been weeks. I've learned not to argue with her about time perception. They walked out together, Alara locking the clinic door behind them. The neighborhood was settling into evening, kids playing basketball in the park across the street, families sitting on stoops, the smell of cooking drifting from open windows. This was nothing like the glittering penthouse where they'd first met. Nothing like the violence of warehouses and hospitals and bombs. This was normal, ordinary, the kind of life Alara had thought she'd lost forever. Lucien's car was parked at the curb, not the armored sedan, just a regular vehicle that didn't scream wealth or danger. Simone sat in the driver's seat because some habits died hard and Lucien still insisted on security, even if it was minimal. "Evening, Miss Quinn," Simone said as they got in. "Simone, I've told you to call me Alara. And I've told you that I'm professionally incapable of that level of informality, ma'am." Alara gave up. 6 months of trying hadn't changed Simone's mind. She doubted 6 years would either. The drive to their apartment took them through Brooklyn, past neighborhoods in various stages of gentrification. They'd chosen this place together, not in Lucien's world or Alara's, but somewhere in between. A renovated brownstone with enough security to satisfy Lucien and enough character to satisfy Alara. Jenna was waiting on their stoop, looking impatient. "Finally," she said when they emerged from the car. "I've been here for 20 minutes. "You're early," Alara pointed out. "I'm excited. Sue me." Jenna bounced slightly. "Is she here yet?" "Plane lands in an hour," Lucien said, unlocking the door. "You're more excited about this than I am. Because I've never met actual royalty before." "She's not royalty, she's my mother." Same thing in my book. They headed upstairs to the apartment. It was spacious but not ostentatious. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, furniture that was comfortable rather than expensive. Alara had insisted on picking most of it out herself, and Lucien had let her, watching with amusement as she rejected anything that looked too expensive or formal. Isabella was visiting from Queens for the weekend, ostensibly to help plan a fundraiser for the clinic, but really just to spend time with them. She'd become a fixture in Alara's life, calling daily, showing up with food, offering advice on everything from clinic management to dealing with Lucien's occasional overprotectiveness. Angela and Sophie were coming too, for a family dinner that had somehow ballooned to include Jenna and Simone and half a dozen others. It was chaotic and loud and everything Alara had never thought she'd have. As she set the table and listened to Jenna grill Lucien about what gifts were appropriate for a 7-year-old obsessed with dinosaurs, Alara felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Contentment. The knowledge that she'd fought for this, for him, for them, for a future that hadn't been guaranteed, and won. "Hey!" Lucien appeared beside her, his hand settling on the small of her back. "You okay?" "Yeah." She leaned into him. "Just thinking." "About?" "About how a year ago I was a broke nursing student who couldn't pay rent. And now I run a clinic, live with a man I love, and I'm about to have dinner with a family that isn't even mine, but somehow is." "Is that a good thing?" "It's the best thing." She turned to face him. "I know it's not perfect. I know there are still threats out there, still people who remember who you used to be. I know we're going to have to keep fighting for this life we've built." "But," he prompted, "but it's worth fighting for. You're worth fighting for." She went up on her toes, kissing him softly. "And I'd do it all again. Every terrifying moment, because it led here." Lucien's arms came around her, holding her close. "I love you," he said into her hair. "More than anything, more than legitimacy or power or safety, just you." "I love you too, even when you're being overprotective and dramatic." "Especially then," he corrected, and she could hear the smile in his voice. The doorbell rang. Sophie's voice echoed up the stairs, high and excited, talking about a T-Rex she'd seen at the museum. Angela was laughing. Isabella was scolding someone, probably Lucien, even though he was right here, about not visiting enough. This was family, chaotic and imperfect, and built from the ruins of violence and loss, but family nonetheless. Alara pulled away from Lucien, wiping her eyes. "Come on, your niece is going to be devastated if you're not there to hear about the dinosaur." "Can't have that." He caught her hand, threading their fingers together. Ready? Always. They walked together toward the voices, toward the people they loved, toward a future that was uncertain, but theirs. And for the first time in a year, Alara wasn't afraid of what came next. Because whatever it was, they'd face it together. The dining room filled with noise and laughter and the smell of Isabella's cooking. Sophie launched into an enthusiastic explanation of Tyrannosaurus Rex hunting strategies, while Jenna tried to convince Angela that they needed to go clubbing sometime. Simone stood by the window, ever watchful, but with a slight smile on her face, and Lucy sat beside Alara, his hand in hers under the table, occasionally catching her eye with a look that said, "Everything words couldn't." This was the resolution. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and hard-won and worth every sacrifice. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Somewhere, people were making deals both legal and illegal. Somewhere, threats were being born and alliances were forming. The world kept turning, indifferent to their small victory. But in this brownstone in Brooklyn, in this room full of people who'd fought and bled and survived together, there was peace. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Years later, when people asked Alara how she'd ended up here, running a network of community clinics across 3 boroughs, married to a man who'd once been the city's most dangerous criminal, she'd think back to that night in the penthouse, to the choice she'd made to stay when every instinct screamed to run. She'd think about bullets and bombs and 100 moments where everything could have ended differently. And she'd smile and say something vague about fate or timing or luck. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than that. The truth was that love wasn't clean or safe or easy. It was messy and terrifying, and it asked for everything you had and sometimes more. The truth was that some things were worth fighting for, worth bleeding for, worth risking everything for. And the truth was that she'd do it all again, every single impossible, beautiful, terrible moment. Because in the end, this was the life she'd chosen. And it was perfect.